You're born a girl in medieval Europe. Congratulations, you've already lost the lottery. Your mother dies bringing you into this world. Not exactly rare since it happens to 1 in 3 women. You start life as both a burden and a living receipt for what it costs. Here's what life was really like for a woman in medieval Europe. Okay, so, if you're here a lot, you know I ask for likes and subscribes, but seriously, where are you guys? Comment your location and time. Sometimes I see someone from California listening at 3 p.m. and I'm like, are you napping? So here's the plan. We're going back to medieval Europe, but first things first, get yourself comfortable, and I mean properly comfortable. This is going to be a good one. The darkness breaks. That's your first memory. Not light exactly, but the absence of darkness. Grey dawn filters through the tiny window of your family's one-room cottage. The air is thick with wood smoke and something else. The smell of fresh blood and sweat. You're hours old and your mother is dead. Your aunt is holding you, her face twisted with grief and exhaustion. She hasn't slept. No one has. They've been too busy trying to stop the bleeding, but it didn't work. It never works, not for the women who just keep bleeding. Will she make it? Your aunt whispers to the midwife, who's wrapping your mother's body in a sheet stained dark with blood. The midwife glances at you, this tiny, red-faced thing. The babe? Maybe. Depends if they can find a wet nurse fast enough. Your father sits in the corner, face buried in his hands. He hasn't looked at you once. The neighbours will later say he loved your mother fiercely, that he'd worked extra in the fields for 2 years to afford the dowry her father demanded, that they'd been happy, something rare in a world where marriage is usually just a business transaction with extra steps. So yeah, welcome to your life. Day 1, and you've already killed the one person your father ever loved. Not the best start. They find a wet nurse, a woman from 2 villages over who lost her own baby a month ago. Her milk keeps you alive, but she can't stay forever. She has other children, a husband, a life that isn't about feeding someone else's motherless daughter. Fast forward 3 months. She's taking a new wife, your aunt tells the midwife as they hang laundry. They don't realise you're close enough to hear, swaddled in a basket under the oak tree. Already? The grave's hardly settled. Your aunt shrugs. What choice does he have? He can't raise a baby alone, can't work the fields with an infant on his back. Who is she? The miller's daughter, young, strong, good hips. Your aunt's voice drops. Widower with a baby isn't exactly a prize, but her father's eager to be rid of her. Too many mouths already. The midwife clicks her tongue. And the baby? What does the new one think of another woman's child? The silence speaks volumes. Your new mother, stepmother, though that's not really a word people use much yet, arrives a week later. She's 17, nearly a decade younger than your father. Her face is plain, her hands already rough from work. She looks at you the way someone might look at an extra chore they didn't expect. She's small, is all she says. Your earliest real memories form around age 3. By then, you're just another fixture in the household, like the wooden table or the cooking pot, a thing that exists, neither particularly loved nor hated. You're useful sometimes, a burden other times, but mostly just there. Your stepmother isn't cruel. That's worth noting. In a world where stepmothers beating their husbands' previous children to death isn't exactly uncommon, yours is practically a saint. She feeds you the same food as her own babies when they come along. She doesn't hit you more than any other child. When you're sick, she gives you the same remedies she gives her blood children. But there's a difference. You see it in the way she brushes your half-sister's hair with slow, gentle strokes, but yanks the tangles from yours with brisk efficiency. You notice how she saves the slightly larger portion for your half-brother, the softer place to sleep, the warmer spot by the fire. Girl, she calls you. rarely using your name. Fetch more water. And you do, because that's what girls do. They fetch, they carry, they work. By age 5, your daily chores already fill most of your waking hours. You feed the chickens before the sun rises. You help knead the coarse bread dough until your little arms ache. You learn to stir the pottage, that eternal pot of whatever vegetables and grains the family can afford, simmering endlessly over the fire. Your father speaks to you sometimes, usually to give instructions or corrections. On rare occasions, when the day's work is done and your half-siblings are asleep, he might tell you that you have your mother's eyes. Then he looks away quickly, as if the sight of them hurts. Your mother knew things, your stepmother tells you one day when you're about 6. You're helping her in the garden behind your house, pulling weeds from between the precious food plants, about herbs and such. This is the first time she's ever mentioned your birth mother without prompting. You freeze, hand clutching a dandelion root. What kinds of things? She points to a plant with delicate purple flowers. She knew that this one, Bettany, can cool a fever, and that one, she points to a plant with tiny white clusters, that's yarrow, stops bleeding. You stare at her, confused by this sudden sharing. She sighs. I'm telling you because you should know. People in the village still talk about her remedies, how she helped with the blacksmith's burn, how she saved the tanner's child from the flux. Did she teach you, you ask? Your stepmother's mouth tightens. No, but my grandmother knew some things, and I've learned a bit more since. She looks at you, really looks at you, maybe for the first time. You're old enough now to be useful. I'll show you which plants to gather, how to dry them properly, what they're good for. It's not affection, it's practicality. An extra pair of hands that can help with this work is valuable, but it's something, a connection, however thin. Why, you ask, unable to stop yourself. She looks surprised by the question. Why what? Why teach me this? Your stepmother snorts. Because it's useful, and because girls need to know how to care for sick children and husbands. You'll have those soon enough. Soon enough. You're 6 years old, and already your future is mapped out with such certainty it makes your stomach clench. But despite this grim prediction, the herb learning becomes the brightest part of your days. You develop a keen eye for plants that others might miss. Your small fingers are nimble at picking the exact leaves needed, at separating seeds from stems. Not that one, your stepmother snaps, slapping your hand away from a plant with white umbrella-like flower clusters. That's hemlock. It looks like wild carrot, but see how the stems have purple spots? Hemlock kills. Remember that. You do remember. You remember everything she teaches you about plants, which ones heal, which ones harm, how to tell them apart, when to harvest them, some before flowering, some during, some after, how to dry them, store them, prepare them. By age 8, you're known in your family as the one who always has mint ready for upset stomachs, comfrey for cuts, willow bark for pain. And while your days remain full of the endless work that defines a medieval girl's childhood, hauling water, feeding animals, helping preserve food, watching younger siblings, these moments in the garden or foraging in the woods become something like freedom. Girl, your father calls one evening, you're 9 now, gangly and perpetually dirty from your chores. The priest's servant is here. You hurry inside to find a nervous-looking boy of about 14 standing awkwardly by your door. Father Thomas has the ague, the boy says, burning with fever since yesterday. He asks if you have any of that. He struggles with the word, that Bettany drink. You look to your stepmother, who nods. Fetch it, she says, the fresh batch we made last week. As you retrieve the small pottery jar of Bettany tea, you can't help but feel a small surge of pride. The priest, the most learned man in the village, is asking for your remedy. Tell him to drink it as hot as he can stand 3 times before morning, your stepmother instructs the boy, and come back tomorrow if the fever hasn't broken. The boy nods, carefully taking the precious jar. He hesitates before leaving. My mother says thank you for the yarrow last month. Her bleeding stopped right away. After he leaves, your father grunts. Thomas better pay this time. Prayers don't fill our bellies. Your stepmother makes a dismissive noise. He'll pay. He always does eventually. You realize then that these remedies aren't just helping people. They're helping your family survive. A few extra coins or a loaf of white bread from the priest's own table makes a difference in a life where hunger is never far away. Not all men of God approve of your family's herbal work, though. The travelling friar who visits twice a year scowls when he sees the bundles of herbs hanging from your rafters. Women's foolishness, he mutters the next summer when you're 10. True healing comes from prayer and penance, not weeds and pagan nonsense. Your stepmother waits until he leaves before she spits on the ground. Last time he had a toothache, he came begging for my clove oil quick enough. This becomes a pattern you'll recognize throughout your life, those with power publicly dismissing women's knowledge while privately benefiting from it. Winter arrives harsh and sudden that year, the kind of cold that kills the old and very young, the kind that makes food stores dwindle too quickly. By January, your family is stretching meals dangerously thin. Your stepmother waters down the pottage until it's hardly more than hot water with the memory of vegetables. The butcher's wife is having a hard labour, a woman tells your stepmother one bitter morning. Been at it since yesterday. The baby won't come. Your stepmother glances at you. Watch the little ones, she says, already reaching for her basket of birthing herbs, raspberry leaf, ergot, blue cohosh, things to strengthen contractions, things to ease pain. She's gone for 2 days. When she returns, her face is grey with exhaustion. Did they live? You ask. The mother, yes. The baby, no. She collapses onto the bench near the fire. But Goodwife Agnes gave us this. She pulls a large cloth-wrapped package from her basket. Inside is a ham, a real ham, something your family hasn't tasted in months. There's also a loaf of bread and a small pot of honey. Your father, who's been cutting firewood, comes in and sees the bounty. He nods once at your stepmother, something like respect in his eyes. That night, as your belly feels pleasantly full for the first time in weeks, you understand another truth about your world. Women save each other, even when it costs them. The butcher's wife nearly died bringing new life into the world, and now your family won't starve this winter. It's a brutal equation, but it's the economy of survival in your time. When you're 11, you get to help with your first real patient. The tanner's youngest daughter has a terrible cough that won't break, the kind that makes everyone exchange knowing glances because children die from such things all the time. Fetch the horehound, your stepmother tells you, and the time will make a steam tent. You help prepare the herbs, boiling them until the kitchen fills with their pungent aroma. Then you follow your stepmother to the tanner's home, carrying the pot carefully so as not to spill the precious liquid. The child is small for her 4 years, her face flushed with fever, her breathing a terrible rasp. You help create a tent of blankets over her and the steaming pot, letting her breathe in the medicinal vapours. Hold her upright, your stepmother instructs you. It helps the phlegm. The girl's little body feels burning hot against yours, her back expanding with each laboured breath. You sit like that for hours, holding her, singing softly when she whimpers, wiping her sweaty face with a cool cloth. By morning, her breathing eases slightly. By the next day, the fever breaks. By the end of the week, she's up and playing again. The tanner, a burly man with permanently stained hands, actually weeps when he thanks your stepmother. He presses a pair of leather shoes into your hands, a luxury beyond imagining. They're the first new shoes you've ever owned, not passed down or patched together. They might be a bit big now, he says gruffly, but you'll grow into them. You stare at these precious things, unable to speak. You know what they represent, not just the saving of one child's life, but your first real step into the world of healers. You helped, you made a difference. Your stepmother notices your awe and something softens in her face. You did well, she says simply. It's the closest thing to praise you've ever received from her. That night, you place the shoes carefully beside your sleeping pallet where you can see them in the dying firelight. They represent something you're just beginning to understand. In this world where women have so little power, knowledge is its own kind of strength. But as you drift off to sleep, you don't yet know how dangerous that strength will become. Your 12th year brings changes to your body that seem both mysterious and alarming. Your stepmother explains the basics with characteristic bluntness. You're becoming a woman now, she says, showing you how to use the rags you'll need monthly, which means you can bear children. The way she says it sounds like a warning. How long until I'm married, you ask, though you already know the answer. Soon enough, your father's been talking to the miller about his apprentice. The boy will have his own mill one day, which means steady food. She looks you over critically. You're skinny still, but you've got your mother's wide hips. Good for birthing. You're being assessed like livestock, and you know it. But this is the way of your world. Girls aren't raised with dreams of love or passion. They're raised to be practical vessels for continuing family lines, for forging alliances between families for economic gain. What if I don't want to marry yet? The question slips out before you can stop it. Your stepmother's laugh is short and harsh. Want? What does want have to do with anything? You think I wanted to marry your father and raise another woman's child? We do what we must. The rebuke stings, but the rare glimpse into her feelings stings more. You've never really considered that she might not have wanted this life either. Besides, she continues more gently, seeing your face fall, what else would you do? A woman alone has no protection, no rights. You need a husband. The conversation ends there, but the questions linger in your mind. Is this truly all there is for women in your world? Marriage, children, service to men, and then an early grave like your mother? You think of the abbess who sometimes visits the village, a woman who commands respect even from the priest. But the abbey only takes girls with dowries, money your family will never have. Besides, you've seen how the village treats unmarried women past a certain age, with suspicion, derision, often cruelty. No, your stepmother is right. Marriage is inevitable. The only question is when and to whom. The answer comes sooner than you expect. You're still 12, but tall for your age when you're sent to deliver some dried chamomile to the baker's wife for her headaches. The baker's son watches you from the corner as you explain the proper way to brew the tea. He's 17 or 18, stocky from hauling flour sacks with a face already reddened from the constant heat of the ovens. That's the herb girl, you hear his mother tell him after you turn to leave. They say she has her mother's touch with the plants, would make a good wife. You hurry away, cheeks burning, but the seed is planted. 2 weeks later, the baker himself comes to speak with your father. They're offering a good price, your father tells you that night. Enough to help with your sister's dowry when her time comes. And bakers never starve. Just like that, your future is decided. You'll finish out the year learning everything you can from your stepmother, then after the next harvest you'll be married. In bed that night you cry silently into your pallet, not because you particularly dislike the baker's son. You hardly know him. But because childhood, with all its hardships, at least offered some freedom. You could disappear into the woods gathering plants for hours. You could ask questions. You could dream just a little. marriage will be different. You've seen enough married women to know what comes next. An endless cycle of pregnancy, childbirth, nursing, all while maintaining a household and helping with whatever your husband's trade requires. But the world doesn't stop for one girl's tears. Spring turns to summer and your days fill with learning every last bit of herbal knowledge your stepmother can impart. "Pay attention," she says sharply as you help her prepare a batch of ointment for burns. "Your husband's family will expect you to know these things. It's part of why they want you. The ointment requires beeswax, which is expensive. You've been allowed to use some only because the blacksmith paid well for the last batch after it healed his apprentice's burned arm. Remember," she continues, "the herbs must never be boiled in the wax, only gently warmed. Too much heat destroys their virtue." You nod, memorizing everything. These skills are the only real inheritance you'll ever receive, the only thing of value you'll bring to your marriage besides your body's ability to produce children. That summer, a traveling merchant passes through with exotic spices from far-off lands. Your stepmother trades a healing salve for a small packet of cinnamon. "For women's monthly troubles," she explains, letting you smell the strange, sweet bark. Just a pinch in hot water eases the cramping. You treasure this new knowledge, adding it to your growing mental store of remedies. Each plant, each preparation feels like a small piece of armor you're gathering for the battles ahead. Your 13th birthday passes without celebration. No one in your family marks birthdays with any special notice. But you quietly observe it yourself, knowing it's likely your last year in your father's home. Winter arrives again, harsh as ever. Your family huddles around the central fire at night, everyone sleeping close together for warmth. Food grows scarce by February. Your youngest half-brother, not yet 3, develops a cough. You recognize the sound immediately. The same terrible rasp you heard in the tanner's daughter years ago. Without being asked, you gather horehound and thyme, prepare the steam tent, show your stepmother you remember her teachings. For 3 days and nights you take turns sitting with the boy, holding him upright, wiping his feverish brow. On the 4th morning his breathing eases. By the week's end he's recovering. Your stepmother doesn't thank you. That's not her way. But that night she places an extra piece of bread beside your bowl. "You'll make a healer yet," is all she says, but you can hear the approval in her voice. Spring brings new plants, new learning, and the slowly approaching reality of your wedding. The date is set for after harvest, when food will be plentiful enough for the modest feast your families can afford. You see the baker's son occasionally in the village. He nods politely, but rarely speaks directly to you. Once he brings you a small honey cake when you deliver fever medicine to his mother. "Thomas made it himself," his mother says proudly. "He has the touch with the ovens, just like his father." You thank him, and for a brief moment as your eyes meet, you wonder if perhaps marriage to this quiet boy might not be so terrible after all. But your 14th summer, your last as an unmarried girl, summer ends too quickly. Before you know it, the grain is being harvested, the apples picked, the winter vegetables stored away. And then one crisp autumn morning, your stepmother wakes you before dawn. "Today's the day," she says, holding out a bundle. Inside is her own wedding dress, altered to fit you. It's the finest thing you'll ever wear, still plain by noble standards, but made of decent linen with tiny embroidered flowers around the neck. "My mother made those," she says, seeing you touch the stitching. There's an unfamiliar softness in her voice. "She was good with a needle." You're bathed in water warmed over the fire, another luxury saved for special occasions. Your hair is combed and braided with a few late wildflowers woven in. As the sun rises fully, you walk with your family to the village church. Not inside, marriages happen outside the church doors in your time. The baker's family is already waiting, along with what seems like the entire village. The baker's son, Thomas, you remind yourself, your future husband's name is Thomas, stands stiffly in his best clothes, looking both proud and terrified. Father Gregory, the priest, begins the ceremony with a question. Is there any reason these two should not be joined in matrimony? There's a moment of silence during which you realize this is your last chance to object. But object to what? To the natural order of things? To the only path available to a girl like you? You remain silent, and the ceremony continues. Thomas speaks his vows clearly, promising to provide for you, to protect you. You speak yours in turn, promising obedience, service, faithfulness. There's no ring. Such luxuries are for nobles. Instead, Thomas places a single silver coin in your palm, symbolizing his commitment to your material welfare. You close your fingers around it, feeling the weight of this small treasure and the much heavier weight of what it represents. And just like that, it's done. You're a wife now, a woman. Your childhood, such as it was, is over. The modest feast that follows is the most abundant meal you've had in your life. The baker has provided bread, of course, not the coarse dark loaf of every day, but white bread, the kind usually reserved for the Lord's table. There's ale and some roasted meat, vegetable pottage, even a honey cake. As twilight falls, you begin the procession to your new home, a small room attached to the bakery. It's traditional for the entire wedding party to accompany the couple, to witness the consummation and ensure the marriage is valid. Your stomach twists with anxiety. You know, in theory, what happens between men and women. You've lived in a one-room house all your life. There are no secrets in such close quarters. Your stepmother gave you a brief practical explanation a few days ago, but theory and practice are very different things. The small room has been decorated with a few autumn flowers. There's a real bed, not just pallets on the floor like in your family's home. Someone has placed a cup of wine on the small table, presumably to help ease your nerves. The wedding guests crowd in, making ribald jokes, as is customary. Thomas looks as uncomfortable as you feel, his face flushed from ale and embarrassment. Your new mother-in-law steps forward, handing you a small pottery jar. Calendula ointment, she whispers, for after. It helps with discomfort. This unexpected kindness nearly brings tears to your eyes. You clutch the jar, nodding gratefully. What follows is awkward, painful, and mercifully brief. The witnesses cheer when it's done and finally file out, leaving you alone with this man who is now your husband. Thomas turns to you in the darkness, his voice uncertain. Are you all right? You don't know how to answer that. Your body hurts. Your emotions are a tangled mess. But this is your life now, for better or worse. Yes, you lie, because it seems kinder than the truth. He nods, seemingly relieved, and soon falls asleep beside you. You lie awake much longer, staring at the unfamiliar ceiling, wondering what tomorrow will bring. This is what it means to be a woman in medieval Europe. You've survived childhood, which already puts you ahead of many. You've learned skills that might help you survive the dangers of adulthood. You're married with a roof over your head and bread on your table. By the standards of your time, you're doing well, better than many. But as you finally drift towards sleep, one hand clutching the small jar of healing ointment, you can't help wondering if there might have been some other path, some world where women's lives hold more possibilities than this. Tomorrow, you'll wake before dawn to help your husband light the bakery ovens. You'll spend your days learning a new household, new expectations, new duties. You'll use your herbal knowledge when neighbours come asking for remedies. You'll prepare for the almost inevitable reality of pregnancy, hoping you don't meet the same fate as your mother. This is your world. These are its rules, and for now at least, you're still alive to play the game. Your first morning as a married woman starts before the sun. Thomas shakes you awake at what feels like the middle of the night. "The ovens," he whispers. "Father will be angry if they're not hot when he arrives." You blink away sleep, wincing at the soreness between your legs, and hurry to dress. No time for washing or even properly braiding your hair. The baker's trade waits for no one, not even newlyweds. The bakery sits at the edge of the village green, with the tiny room where you slept attached to its back. The main room holds 2 massive stone ovens that need to be blazing hot before the dough is ready. Thomas shows you how to stack the kindling just so, how to feed the flames until they roar. The heat is intense, nothing like the modest cooking fire in your father's home. By the time your father-in-law arrives, sweat trickles down your back despite the autumn chill outside. "Good," he grunts, seeing the ovens glowing. "Now fetch water." And just like that, your new life begins. The rhythm of the bakery is different from your father's home, but the endless work feels familiar enough. You're up before dawn every day, helping light the ovens, hauling water and flour, sweeping endlessly to keep the floor free of mice-attracting crumbs. You learn to shape loaves alongside your mother-in-law, who's kinder than your stepmother but twice as exacting. "No, no," she tuts, taking a misshapen loaf from your hands. "Like this, gentle but firm. The bread knows if you're afraid of it." You try again, pressing the heels of your hands into the dense dough, turning it just so. Your mother-in-law nods approvingly. "Better, you'll learn. Thomas took years to get it right, and he was raised in a bakery." Thomas. Your husband is still mostly a stranger, though you share a bed each night. He's not unkind, just quiet. He works hard, focused on learning his father's trade well enough to take over someday. When he touches you at night, it's brief and awkward, both of you still unsure of this new intimacy. "My mother says you know herbs," he says one evening, about 2 weeks after your wedding. He's washing flour from his hands in the basin while you mend a tear in his work tunic. "Some," you answer, looking up from your stitches. "Old Willem the Cooper has gout again. His feet are so swollen he can't work. Do you know anything that might help?" You consider this. Gout is tricky. It comes from within, not like a wound you can see and clean. "But your stepmother taught you a few remedies." "Meadowsweet tea might ease his pain," you say carefully. "And cherry stems can help clear the bad humours causing the swelling." Thomas nods. "Could you make some? Father says we need those barrels before winter." You're surprised he's asking. Most husbands wouldn't bother consulting their wives about such things, especially not a new young wife. "Yes," you say. "I'll need to gather the plants tomorrow." He nods again. "Take what time you need. Mother can help with the shaping." The next morning, after the ovens are lit, but before the bread needs shaping, you slip away to the meadows outside the village. Autumn is well advanced now, but you still find enough meadowsweet to make a decent tea. You'll need to use dried cherry stems from your small store of herbs. The special box your stepmother gave you as a wedding gift, filled with carefully labelled packets of dried plants. Old Willem lives alone since his wife died 2 summers ago. His cottage smells of wood shavings and unwashed man. He's suspicious when you arrive with your little bundle of remedies. "What's this then? The baker's sending his child bride to cure me?" He laughs, a phlegmy sound that turns into a cough. You hold your ground. "I brought meadowsweet tea for the pain and cherry stem tincture for the swelling. My stepmother used them for the miller's gout last spring, and he was back at work within days." Willem eyes you more carefully. "Ah, you're the herb girl. Heard about you." He gestures to his hideously swollen foot. "Can't be worse than this. What do I do with your weeds?" You explain how to brew the tea, how to take the tincture, how many times each day. As you're leaving, he calls after you. Your mother was a healer too, wasn't she, before she died? You freeze. People rarely mention your birth mother to your face, so I'm told, you say softly. He nods. She saved my Martha once. Baby was coming wrong, feet first. Everyone said they'd both die, but your mother turned that child right inside the womb. His rheumy eyes look past you, remembering. Magic, it seemed like, but Martha said it was just knowing where to press and when. You walk back to the bakery with his words echoing in your head. Your mother knew things, important things, things that saved lives, and somewhere inside you that knowledge might still exist, passed down through blood, if not through teaching. 3 days later, Willem hobbles to the bakery. His swelling noticeably reduced. Works better than the monk's remedies, he announces loudly to everyone in the shop, and she charges less too. You hadn't charged anything, but before you can correct him, he presses a finely carved wooden spoon into your hands. For the medicine woman, he says with a wink. Your father-in-law frowns slightly at this exchange, but says nothing. Your mother-in-law looks thoughtful. That night, after everyone is asleep, she comes to your room with a small jar. For your herb box, she says, handing it to you. Inside are dried blackberry leaves. Good for women's monthly courses. Eases the cramps. You take it, surprised. Thank you, she shrugs. We women must help each other. God knows the men won't. After that, word spreads. The baker's young wife knows herbs, just like her mother did. People begin to stop by. Not many, and usually when your father-in-law isn't around. A child with a persistent cough, a woman with painful monthly bleeding, a field worker with an infected cut. You help when you can, fitting it around your bakery duties. Sometimes you trade your remedies for small goods, eggs, a piece of cheese, a length of ribbon. Sometimes you give them freely, especially to those who clearly have nothing to spare. Thomas says nothing directly about your growing side practice, but sometimes you catch him watching you with a curious expression as you bundle herbs or mix a salve. Winter arrives, harsh as ever. The bakery is the warmest place in the village, its ovens never fully cooling. People linger when they come to buy bread, reluctant to return to their cold homes. The priest's servant, a gaunt man named Hal, is one of these lingerers. He shivers visibly one morning as he counts out the coins for the church's daily loaves. Cold's gotten into my bones, he explains, seeing your concerned look. Can't seem to get warm, even by the rectory fire. You hesitate, glancing at your father-in-law, who's busy with another customer. Wait here, you murmur. In your room, you retrieve a small packet of dried ginger root, cinnamon bark, and cloves, expensive spices you've been carefully hoarding from your stepmother's supplies. Add a pinch to hot wine before bed, you tell Hal quietly. It will warm you from within and help you sleep. He takes it gratefully. What do I owe you? You think quickly. Ask Father Thomas if he still has that book of plant drawings, the one from the monastery. I'd like to see it sometime. Hal nods, tucking the packet into his tunic. I'll ask, though he guards his books jealously. Your father-in-law gives you an odd look when you return, but doesn't question where you went or what you gave the priest's man. A week later, Hal returns, looking much healthier. He slips you a folded piece of parchment when your father-in-law's back is turned. From Father Thomas, he whispers. You can visit the rectory tomorrow after terce to see the book, but you must not touch it with bare hands. His rule. The parchment contains a brief note in careful script. I will show you the herbal if you will prepare more of your warming remedy. It eases my winter joints as well. Your hands tremble with excitement. A real herbal, a book of plant knowledge. Such things exist mainly in monasteries and noble houses, far beyond the reach of village women like you. Can you manage without me tomorrow morning? You ask Thomas that night. Just for an hour or so. Father Thomas has invited me to see a book of plant drawings. Thomas looks surprised. The priest is showing you his books? You explain about the warming remedy, how it helped both Hal and the priest himself. Thomas considers this. Father won't be pleased if the morning baking is delayed. It won't be. I'll be back before the loaves need shaping. I'll wake earlier to make up the time. He studies you for a moment, then nods. All right, but be quick about it. And he hesitates. Be careful with the priest. He's a learned man, but not always a kind one. The warning surprises you. Thomas rarely offers opinions about others. What do you mean? He sighs. Just don't let him make you feel small, because you're not. His words warm you more than any spiced wine could. It's perhaps the kindest thing he's said to you since your wedding. The next morning, you're at the rectory precisely at the appointed time. Hal leads you to the priest's private study, a luxury few in the village have, a room used for nothing but reading and writing. Father Thomas is a thin man with a perpetual frown. He gestures impatiently for you to sit across from him. So you're the baker's wife, the one with the herbs. Yes, Father. He studies you through narrowed eyes. Your mother was a healer, I'm told, before she died, birthing you. You nod, keeping your face carefully neutral. Everyone seems to know more about your mother than you do. And who taught you? The second wife? My stepmother, yes. And I've learned some on my own from watching what works and what doesn't. He makes a dismissive noise. Women's knowledge, passed down like cooking recipes. He reaches for a book bound in worn leather. True medical knowledge comes from study, from the ancients. Hippocrates, Galen, Avicenna. You've never heard these names, but you nod as if you have. He opens the book carefully, revealing pages of detailed plant illustrations with text in Latin beneath each one. Your breath catches at the beauty of it. This is a copy of a much older text, Father Thomas explains, his tone becoming more animated, created by monks at the abbey. Each plant is shown exactly as God made it, with its proper uses described. You lean forward, entranced by the detailed drawings. Many plants you recognize, comfrey, yarrow, sage, but others are foreign to you. What is this one? You ask, pointing to a strange, spiky plant with purple flowers. Milk thistle, he replies, good for ailments of the liver, and this, he turns the page, is valerian, for sleeplessness and nervous disorders. For nearly an hour, he turns the pages, naming plants and their uses. You drink in the knowledge, committing each image to memory. Some confirm what your stepmother taught you, others offer new possibilities. The warming remedy, he says finally, closing the book. You'll make more? Yes, Father, I've brought the ingredients. You remove a carefully wrapped package from your basket. Just a pinch in hot wine before bed. He takes it, nodding. You may return next week if you wish to see more of the book. You can hardly believe your luck. Thank you, Father. I would be most grateful. As you turn to leave, he calls after you. The knowledge in these pages comes from God through the work of holy men. Remember that. Women's hedge magic is but a shadow of true medical science. You bow your head respectfully, hiding your thoughts. In your experience, a remedy either works or it doesn't, regardless of whether it came from a monk's book or a village woman's teaching. When you return to the bakery, your father-in-law is in a foul mood, complaining about the shaping of the morning's loaves in your absence. Your mother-in-law catches your eye and gives a tiny shake of her head, a warning not to argue. You work twice as hard the rest of the day to make up for your brief absence. That night, your arms ache from kneading and your back throbs from hauling water, but your mind is alive with new knowledge. "How was the book?" Thomas asks quietly as you climb into bed beside him. "Wonderful," you whisper, too excited to sleep despite your exhaustion. "So many plants I've never seen, remedies I never knew. Will you go back? Father Thomas said I could return next week." Thomas is silent for a long moment. Then, "Just be careful. Don't neglect your duties here. Father already thinks I was too hasty in choosing a wife." A small knot forms in your stomach. "Am I not doing enough? I wake before dawn, work until after dark." "You do plenty," he interrupts. "It's just, he expected me to marry the chandler's daughter. She comes from more money." "Oh," the word is small in the darkness. "I wanted you," Thomas adds, his voice softer. "When I saw how you helped the tanner's child with that cough 2 years ago, how you knew just what to do while everyone else was panicking, I thought, that's someone who keeps her head, someone strong." His admission stuns you. You'd assumed your marriage was arranged entirely by your fathers, with little input from either you or Thomas. "You chose me." In the dim light from the banked fire, you see him nod, as much as any man gets to choose. "I told Father I wouldn't marry Agnes from the chandlery, no matter how many beeswax candles came with her." You're not sure what to say. This is the most personal conversation you've had since your wedding nearly 2 months ago. "Thank you," you finally whisper. He makes an embarrassed sound and turns over. "Get some sleep. Dawn comes early." The weeks pass in a blur of work, occasional visits to the rectory to study the herbal, and a growing trickle of villagers seeking your remedies. Winter tightens its grip on the village. Food stores dwindle. Sickness spreads in the cold, damp conditions. Just after the new year, Thomas falls ill with a racking cough. Your father-in-law blames you immediately. "Spending time with the sick, bringing their humours into my bakery," he spits. "Now my son can't work. Who will help me with the heavy sacks?" Your mother-in-law intervenes. "The boy needs rest and medicine, not your shouting husband." You prepare a thyme and honey syrup for Thomas's cough, adding a bit of the precious ginger to warm his chest. For 3 days you divide your time between bakery work and tending to your husband, sleeping little. On the 4th night, as Thomas's fever finally breaks, you sway on your feet from exhaustion. Your mother-in-law steers you firmly to bed. "Sleep," she orders. "I'll watch him now." You collapse onto the pallet, asleep almost before your head touches down. You dream of your birth mother, her face indistinct but her hands clear, capable hands moving confidently among herbs and sick people. In the dream, she's trying to tell you something important, but you can't hear her words. You wake to Thomas shaking your shoulder gently. "Wife," he says, "wake up. Mother says you've been asleep nearly a full day." You sit up, disoriented. Pale winter sunlight filters through the small window. "A day, but the bread is baked," he assures you. "I'm well enough to work now, thanks to your medicine. Father's even admitted it worked better than the last remedy we bought from the monastery." Relief washes over you, both for Thomas's recovery and the fact that you haven't neglected your duties to the point of disaster. "There's something else," he continues. "Goodwife Ellen is here. Her child has the croup, the same cough I had, but worse. She's asking for you specifically. Ellen is the carpenter's wife, a woman of some standing in the village. Her seeking your help is significant." Your mother-in-law appears in the doorway. "I've told her you're just waking, but she's desperate. The child's been coughing since yesterday, turning blue around the lips." You push aside your own exhaustion. A child turning blue needs help immediately. "Tell her I'm coming. I just need to gather my supplies." As you quickly assemble herbs for a steam treatment, Thomas watches from the doorway. You're still tired, he observes. I can tell her to seek the monk who visits from the abbey. He'll be here in 2 days. You shake your head. The child might not have 2 days. He nods, understanding. Then go. I'll explain to father. The carpenter's home is one of the nicer ones in the village. 2 rooms instead of 1, with real glass in one small window. Ellen meets you at the door, her face haggard with worry. Thank God you've come, she says, pulling you inside. Martin can't seem to catch his breath between coughs. The midwife tried honey and vinegar, but it did nothing. The child, not quite 2 years old, lies listlessly in a small bed near the fire. His breathing is laboured, each inhale a struggle, each exhale ending in a horrible barking cough. When he coughs, you see what Ellen meant. His lips take on a bluish tinge from lack of air. You've seen this before, with your youngest half-brother and others in the village. Croup can kill if the swelling in the throat becomes too great for breath to pass. I need a pot of water boiling, you instruct, and clean cloths, then something to make a tent over the child. Ellen rushes to comply. Her husband stands awkwardly nearby, clearly terrified for his son, but unsure how to help. While the water heats, you mix a salve of goose fat, camphor, and eucalyptus oil, the latter a rare substance you received in trade from a travelling merchant. You gently rub it on the child's chest and throat. What is that smell? Ellen asks, wrinkling her nose at the strong aroma. Eucalyptus, you explain. From lands far to the south, it opens the breathing passages. You don't add that it cost you nearly a month's worth of saved egg money. When the water boils, you add thyme, rosemary, and a precious pinch of sage. The steam rises, fragrant and medicinal. You create a tent with a blanket over the child's bed, trapping the healing vapours inside. He needs to breathe this steam for as long as possible, you tell Ellen. And drink as much warm liquid as you can get into him. Honey with a drop of vinegar in warm water is good. The salve should be applied again before sleep. You show her how to maintain the steam tent, how much of the precious salve to use. The carpenter watches intently, clearly committing your instructions to memory alongside his wife. Will he live? He asks bluntly when you've finished. You look at the child, who's already breathing slightly easier in the medicated steam. If the swelling in his throat doesn't worsen, yes, the next day will tell. They both nod, understanding the gravity without you needing to elaborate. What do we owe you? The carpenter asks. You hesitate. These are people of means by village standards. They can afford to pay, but you're still establishing yourself, still learning what is appropriate to ask. Perhaps some wood for my herb boxes, you suggest. Come spring, I'll need places to dry and store more remedies. The carpenter looks relieved. This is a payment he can easily provide. I'll make you the finest herb boxes in the village, with proper lids and dividers if you want them. You smile, pleased with this arrangement. That would be most helpful, thank you. As you gather your remaining supplies to leave, Ellen touches your arm. People say you have your mother's gift, she says quietly. They say she could see inside the body somehow, know exactly what was wrong. You've heard similar things now from several villagers, these whispered mentions of your mother's alleged abilities. It both pleases and unsettles you. I just know what my stepmother taught me, you say modestly, and what I've learned from Father Thomas's herbal. Ellen nods, but her expression suggests she believes there's more to it than that. You walk home through the winter twilight, snow crunching beneath your feet, thinking about your mother. What exactly was her gift? Was it truly something mystical, as villagers hint, or simply careful observation, detailed knowledge, and skilled hands? And whatever it was, have you inherited any measure of it? At the bakery, you find Thomas alone, stoking the banked ovens for the morning's baking. How is the child? He asks, straightening. Better, I think. The steam is helping him breathe. He nods. Good. Father and mother have gone to bed already. He hesitates, then adds, Father says if the carpenter's son lives, he'll stop objecting to your herb work, says it brings credit to the bakery, having a healer in the family. You raise your eyebrows, surprised by this concession. And if the child doesn't improve? Thomas's expression grows serious. Let's pray he does, for everyone's sake. You understand his meaning? A dead child means not only tragedy for the parents, but potential blame for the healer who failed to save him. That night you lie awake longer than usual, listening to Thomas's steady breathing beside you. The weight of responsibility settles heavy on your chest. Before, your remedies were simple things, easing aches, soothing coughs, reducing fevers. But now, a child's life might hang in the balance. Is this how your mother felt each time she attended a difficult birth or a dangerously ill patient? This mix of determination and fear? You place a hand on your own abdomen, still flat, but perhaps not for long. You've been married nearly 3 months now, and your monthly bleeding is 2 weeks late. Too early to be certain, but you recognize the signs from helping your stepmother with other pregnant women, the tender breasts, the strange aversions to certain foods, the unusual tiredness. If there is indeed a new life growing inside you, will you survive bringing it into the world? Or will your child grow up as you did, knowing their mother only through others' memories? These dark thoughts swirl until exhaustion finally pulls you under. Your last conscious thought is a kind of prayer, though not one the priest would recognize. Mother, whoever and wherever you are, help me be strong like you. Help me save lives instead of losing my own. The next morning, a breathless boy pounds on the bakery door just as you're feeding kindling into the ovens. Goodwife Baker, he calls. Goodwife Ellen says, come quick. The babe's fever has broken. Relief washes through you. Thomas, hauling a sack of flour nearby, meets your eyes and smiles. A real, full smile that transforms his usually serious face. Go, he says. I'll handle the morning bread. As you gather your basket and hurry through the pre-dawn darkness toward the carpenter's house, a strange feeling rises in your chest. It takes you a moment to recognize it, this unfamiliar emotion, pride. You feel proud, for perhaps the first time in your life, as a woman in medieval Europe. You've done something that is truly, solely yours. Not as a daughter, not as a wife, but as yourself, a healer with knowledge and skill that others value and need. It's a small triumph in a world where women's victories are rare and often invisible, but as you step through the fresh snow, your breath clouding in the cold air, it feels momentous. The carpenter's son recovers fully. Word spreads, more villagers seek your help. Your father-in-law stops grumbling about your herb nonsense when the steady stream of small payments, eggs, cheese, candles, a length of good wool, adds to the family's comfort through the lean winter months. By the time the first crocuses push through the melting snow, your suspicions are confirmed. You're carrying a child due to arrive when the harvest does. Thomas receives the news with a mixture of pride and terror typical of first-time fathers. Your mother-in-law's eyes fill with tears of joy. A grandchild, she whispers, placing a gnarled hand over yours. God willing, I'll live to see it grow. Your father-in-law merely nods as if you've fulfilled a contractual obligation. Good, he says. The bakery needs another pair of hands. That night, as Thomas sleeps beside you, you place both hands on your still flat belly and make a silent promise to the tiny life within. I will survive bringing you into this world. Whatever it takes, whatever I must learn, I will live to see you grow. Whether it's a daughter to teach or a son to love, this child will know its mother. You will break the cycle that began with your own birth. You have knowledge, you have determination, and most importantly, you have 9 months to prepare. The game has changed. The stakes are higher. But for the first time, you believe you might actually have some control over your fate. Spring unfolds around you like a slow green miracle. While your body harbours its own hidden growth, the world outside bursts visibly to life. Crocuses giving way to daffodils, bare branches sprouting tender leaves, birdsong returning to fill the dawn air. Your pregnancy changes everything, though not in ways you expected. No more heavy lifting, your mother-in-law declares firmly when you reach for a water bucket. She takes it from your hands with surprising strength for her age. We don't need you bleeding like your poor mother did. The mention of your mother's fate, something rarely spoken of directly, sends a chill through you despite the warming weather. Was it the lifting that killed her, you ask quietly? Your mother-in-law's face softens. No one knows for certain, child. Sometimes women just bleed and nothing stops it. She pats your arm awkwardly, but no sense taking chances. Thomas becomes unexpectedly protective, insisting you rest more, eat better portions. Your father-in-law grumbles about your reduced workload, but doesn't override his wife's edicts. The baking must go on, pregnant daughter-in-law or not. What surprises you most is how the pregnancy affects your healing work. Instead of declining, requests for your help increase. Women trust a healer with child, explains Agnes, the midwife who tends to most births in the village. She's come to the bakery one afternoon, ostensibly to buy bread, but really to assess you. This young woman whose reputation grows daily. They figure you have extra reason to know what you're doing, that you won't risk harming another mother. Agnes is a square, practical woman of about 50, with capable hands and observant eyes. She's delivered most of the village children born in the last 20 years. I'd like to learn from you, you tell her boldly, about childbirth. Her eyebrows rise. Planning to compete with me, are you? No, you say quickly. For myself. I don't want to die like my mother. Agnes's expression softens slightly. Smart girl. Most just pray and hope for the best. She studies you for a moment. Come to my cottage tomorrow after you've finished the morning baking. Bring those dried blackberry leaves you've been giving the baker's wife for her monthly pains. I've heard good things. That night, you tell Thomas about Agnes's invitation. The midwife? He frowns. Is something wrong with the baby? No, you assure him. She's going to teach me about childbirth so I can be better prepared. His frown deepens. Isn't that what midwives are for? To know these things so you don't have to? You take a deep breath, choosing your words carefully. My mother had a midwife. It didn't save her. Thomas falls silent, unable to argue with this brutal fact. Besides, you continue, Agnes herself invited me, said I was smart to want to learn. He sighs. Just don't tire yourself. The baby comes first. You bite back a response that rises sharp in your throat, that your survival comes first, because without you, the baby has no mother. But Thomas means well in his limited male understanding of these matters. I won't, is all you say. Agnes's cottage sits at the edge of the village, half hidden by ancient apple trees just now breaking into pink-white blossoms. Inside, dried herbs hang from every beam, and the single room is dominated by a large table covered with mortars, pestles, jars, and bundles of plants. "You've brought the blackberry leaves?" she asks without preamble. You hand her the carefully wrapped package. She opens it, examining the dried leaves with a critical eye, then nods approvingly. Good quality. You've preserved them well. She gestures to a stool. Sit. We've much to cover and only a morning to do it. What follows is the most direct, practical education you've ever received. Agnes holds nothing back, describing in frank detail the processes of labour and delivery, how the body opens, how the baby descends, what can go wrong, and sometimes how to fix it. "Your mother's bleeding," she says matter-of-factly. "Likely the afterbirth didn't come away clean. Pieces left inside can cause bleeding that won't stop. You swallow hard, imagining your mother's final moments. How do you prevent that? Sometimes you can't," Agnes says bluntly. "But I'll show you an herb mixture that helps the womb contract strongly after birth. Pushes everything out, it does." She moves to her table, mixing dried leaves from different bundles. Raspberry leaf, motherwort, shepherd's purse. This tea, drunk daily for the last 2 months of pregnancy, strengthens the womb. Then this, she holds up another mixture, taken right after the birth, helps expel the afterbirth and prevent bleeding. You commit the mixtures to memory, watching carefully as she demonstrates the proportions. "There's more to birthing than herbs, though," Agnes continues. "Position matters. Most midwives have women lie flat on their backs, but that's not always best. Sometimes squatting helps, or being on hands and knees." She demonstrates these positions, unself-conscious about her aging body. You watch attentively, mentally cataloguing everything. "The baby can come wrong too," she says. "Feet first, or arm first, or facing the wrong way." "Can you turn them?" you ask, remembering Willem's story about your mother turning a breech baby. Agnes gives you a sharp look. "Sometimes. If you know how to feel the baby through the mother's belly, you can tell which way it's lying. Early enough, some can be turned by pressing here and here." She demonstrates on her own rounded belly, though hers is from age rather than pregnancy. By the time the morning ends, your head swims with new knowledge, some reassuring, some terrifying. Agnes sends you home with a packet of the pregnancy tea. "Start drinking it now, 1 cup each day," she instructs. "Come back next week, we've barely scratched the surface." These weekly sessions with Agnes continue throughout the spring and into early summer. Sometimes you simply talk, with Agnes sharing birth stories, successful ones and tragic ones alike. Other times she has you practice with a cloth doll and a woven basket, simulating difficult deliveries. "Never pull on the baby," she warns repeatedly. "Guide it, yes. Support it, yes. But never, ever pull." Some lessons involve identifying complications before they become deadly. If the mother's face and hands swell greatly, if she sees spots before her eyes, if she convulses, Agnes lists grimly, she may die unless the baby comes immediately. Sometimes bleeding her helps, sometimes nothing does. Other lessons focus on practical comfort measures, massage techniques for labour pains, positions to ease difficult births, herbal remedies to speed delivery or slow it when needed. "You're a quick study," Agnes tells you one day, "as summer ripens around you. Your own body has ripened too, your belly now a firm, obvious mound beneath your apron. Quicker than most I've taught. You've taught others. This surprises you, as Agnes has no daughters of her own." She nods. "A few. Girls with the right mindset. Most are too frightened by the blood and mess, or too squeamish to discuss women's private parts so directly." "And what happened to them? The ones you taught?" A shadow crosses Agnes's face. "2 became midwives in other villages. 1 died of fever. Another—" she hesitates. "Another was accused of witchcraft in the next town over, using magic to ease birth pains, they said." Your blood chills. "And did she use magic?" "No. Just herbs and knowledge, same as me, same as you." Agnes sighs heavily. but knowledge in a woman's hands frightens some folk, especially men who think suffering in childbirth is God's will for Eve's sin. You think of Father Thomas with his dismissive view of women's hedge magic. Would he see your growing skills as witchcraft if he knew their extent? Agnes seems to follow your thoughts. Keep your learning close, she advises. Help when asked, but don't flaunt what you know. There's safety in appearing simple. You nod, understanding. This is the delicate balance all women must maintain, being useful without appearing threatening. As your belly grows larger, your work at the bakery necessarily diminishes. You can no longer lift the heavy flour sacks or water buckets, can't bend easily to load the ovens, but your healing practice expands to fill the gap. Word has spread through the village, and beyond that, the baker's wife has a special touch with remedies. Women come with their ailments, menstrual difficulties, fertility troubles, pregnancy complaints. Men come too, though often furtively, as if ashamed to seek help from a woman. Even children are brought to you for coughs, rashes, minor injuries. You treat them all, applying what you've learned from your stepmother, from Agnes, from Father Thomas's herbal, and increasingly from your own experience. You develop a reputation for honesty. If you can't help, you say so plainly rather than offering false hope. This earns you respect, even from those initially skeptical. The priest watches this growing practice with mixed feelings. On one hand, your remedies have eased his own winter joint pains. On the other, he's increasingly uneasy about your influence. These are not proper consultations, he says stiffly one day when he finds 3 village women waiting outside the bakery to speak with you. You have no training from the medical college, no church approval to practice healing. I only offer herbal remedies, Father, you reply carefully. Simple women's knowledge for common complaints. Nothing that contradicts church teaching. He harumphs, but doesn't forbid your work outright. He can't, really. Too many in the village, including himself, have benefited from your skills. By late summer, your pregnancy dominates your daily existence. The heat is oppressive, making the bakery nearly unbearable. You wake in the night, your growing child kicking and rolling inside you. Active one, isn't it? Thomas murmurs sleepily, placing his hand on your swollen belly to feel the movements. Like you, his mother calls from her pallet across the room. Never stopped kicking, day or night. Your poor father couldn't sleep for months. These casual revelations about Thomas's childhood, about his existence before you knew him, fascinate you. Your own mother left no such memories, no such stories. When the first pains come, you're in the garden behind the bakery, harvesting late summer herbs. They're mild at first, a tightening across your lower back, a cramping sensation that comes and goes. You've felt similar twinges for weeks, but these feel different, more purposeful. You finish gathering what you need, then make your way inside. Your mother-in-law takes one look at your face and knows. It's starting? You nod. I think so, but early yet. She nods briskly. First babies often take their time. We'll send for Agnes when the pains come closer together. You're grateful for her calm. Your own emotions are unexpectedly turbulent. Not just fear of the pain and danger ahead, but a strange grief that your mother isn't here to see you become a mother yourself. Thomas is sent to finish the day's baking alone, with strict instructions not to worry. Men are useless at birthings anyway, his mother tells him firmly. We'll call if we need you. The labour progresses slowly, as your mother-in-law predicted. You walk the small room, stopping to breathe through contractions when they come. You sip the labour tea Agnes prepared for you, raspberry leaf, motherwort, and a touch of chamomile to calm your nerves. By evening, the pains are strong enough that Thomas is sent to fetch Agnes. She arrives promptly, her expression professionally neutral as she assesses you. Good progress, she announces after examining you. The baby's head is down, as it should be. Now we wait. Waiting proves harder than you imagined. Night falls, and still you labour. Thomas paces outside, banished from the birthing room by tradition and practicality. Your father-in-law takes himself to the alehouse, unwilling to listen to a woman's birthing cries. As midnight approaches, the pain intensifies beyond anything you've experienced. You remember Agnes's lessons about positions and insist on kneeling, leaning forward against the bed rather than lying on your back as tradition dictates. If it eases the pain, do it, Agnes agrees, ignoring your mother-in-law's raised eyebrows at this unconventional approach. The night stretches endlessly. You lose track of time, existing only in the rhythm of contractions, the brief respites between, the encouraging murmurs of the two older women. "The baby's stuck," your mother-in-law whispers to Agnes during a particularly long, brutal contraction. She thinks you can't hear, but your senses seem unnaturally sharp. "Not yet," Agnes replies calmly. "The head's just large. See how the pains are still coming regularly? That's good." Dawn breaks, pink light filtering through the small window. You've been labouring nearly a full day. Exhaustion presses down on you like a physical weight. "I can't," you gasp as another contraction builds. "I can't do this anymore." "You can, and you will," Agnes says firmly. "Every woman thinks she can't continue right before the baby comes. It's a good sign." She checks you again, nodding with satisfaction. It's time to push now. With each pain, bear down like you're passing stool. The pushing brings new pain, but also relief. Finally, something active to do after the endless passive endurance of labour. You bear down with each contraction, feeling the baby inch downward. "I see the head," your mother-in-law exclaims suddenly. "Dark hair, just like Thomas had." This announcement gives you fresh strength. You push again, feeling an impossible stretching, a burning sensation that makes you cry out. "Gently now," Agnes cautions. "Slow and steady. Too fast and you'll tear." You pant, fighting your body's urge to push hard, allowing the baby's head to emerge slowly. There's a moment of excruciating pressure, then sudden relief as the head fully emerges. "One more push," Agnes encourages, "for the shoulders." You summon your last reserves of strength, bearing down as the final contraction builds. There's another stretch, another burning sensation, then a slippery feeling as the baby slides from your body into Agnes's waiting hands. A thin wail fills the room. Your heart leaps at the sound. "A girl," Agnes announces, quickly wiping the baby's face and placing her on your chest. A fine, strong girl. You stare down at the tiny red face, the dark, wet hair, the impossibly small fingers. She's real, she's here, and you're alive to see her. The afterbirth, Agnes reminds you gently after a moment. One more task. You'd almost forgotten this crucial step, the one that likely killed your mother. Agnes gives you a special tincture to drink, bitter and strong. Within minutes you feel another contraction building. You push once more and the afterbirth slides out, which Agnes examines carefully. "Complete," she pronounces, relief evident in her voice. "Nothing left inside." Only then do you truly believe you've survived. You've done what your mother couldn't, brought a new life into the world and remained alive to mother her. Your mother-in-law opens the door to inform Thomas. His face appears haggard from a sleepless night of worry. "A daughter," she tells him. "And your wife is well." He stumbles in, eyes fixed on the tiny bundle against your chest. He kneels beside you, reaching out one finger to touch the baby's cheek with infinite gentleness. "She's perfect," he whispers. Agnes finishes her work efficiently, washing you, helping you into a clean nightgown, checking for excessive bleeding. She prepares another medicinal tea, this one to prevent infection and encourage healing. Drink this 3 times daily, she instructs. And this salve is for soreness. You'll need it. Before leaving, she pulls you close, speaking low so only you can hear. You did well, better than most first-time mothers. You have a gift for this. Not just the healing, but the birthing too. There's knowledge in your body that didn't need to be taught. Her words warm you almost as much as the tiny life nestled against your breast. Knowledge in your body. Perhaps this is what you inherited from your mother, not just her wide hips or her reported healing touch, but some deeper wisdom that lives in the blood and bone. The first weeks with your daughter pass in a blur of exhaustion, wonder, and physical recovery. You name her Marta after your mother-in-law, who weeps at the honor. Breastfeeding proves challenging at first, painful and frustratingly difficult to coordinate between your inexperienced body and your daughter's equally inexperienced mouth. But you persist, remembering Agnes's assurance that it gets easier. She's right, as usual. By the end of the first month, you and Marta have established a rhythm, your body responding to her cries with milk before you even consciously register her hunger. Thomas returns to the bakery full-time, leaving you to focus on recovery and the baby. Your healing work pauses briefly, but by Marta's 2nd month, women begin appearing at your door again, often bringing small gifts for the baby, along with their requests for remedies. Just a salve for my husband's rash, one woman explains, handing over a tiny knitted cap for Marta. Nothing urgent. When you have a moment. You're touched by their consideration, their understanding that motherhood has temporarily limited your availability, but you also find yourself eager to resume your work, to engage with the world beyond feeding and changing your daughter. So, you develop a new routine. While Marta sleeps, you prepare remedies. When she's awake but content, you see patients, often with her bundled against your chest. Women especially appreciate this arrangement, cooing over your daughter while discussing their ailments. She'll learn healing from the start, one elderly woman remarks approvingly. Just as it should be. Knowledge passed mother to daughter. This casual comment strikes you deeply. Yes, you think, looking down at Marta's dark head. This is what should have happened with your own mother. This is what you lost when she died, but it's also what you're reclaiming now. This female lineage of healing knowledge, transmitted through generations. Your mother to you, however indirectly, you to your daughter, the chain reforged. As autumn approaches, bringing cooler days and earlier sunsets, you gradually resume more duties at the bakery. Not the heavy work yet. Your body is still healing, still softened from pregnancy, but the skilled tasks of shaping loaves, managing the ovens, serving customers. Thomas has changed since Marta's birth. He's gentler somehow, more talkative. He tells you about his day while holding your daughter in the evenings, describing loaves baked and customers served in a soft sing-song voice that makes Marta's eyes widen. One night, as you sit together by the fire, he asks unexpectedly, "What happened to your mother's remedies after she died?" The question startles you. "What do you mean?" "Well, she must have had herbs, salves, tinctures, things she'd made. Where did they go?" "You've never considered this before." "I don't know. My father never mentioned them." Thomas nods thoughtfully. "Seems a waste. Knowledge lost." "Not entirely lost," you point out, gesturing to your own herb box. "I'm learning it again. Different sources maybe, but similar knowledge." "Still," he persists, "might be worth asking your father if anything remains. Books, recipes, anything she wrote down." The idea takes root in your mind. Did your mother leave written records? Could some tangible piece of her knowledge have survived all these years? The next market day, you wrap Marta warmly and walk to your father's house for the first time since your wedding. It feels strange to knock on the door of the home where you grew up, like you're a visitor to your own past. Your stepmother answers, surprise registering on her face before she masks it with a polite smile. "Well," she says, "the baker's wife and her child. Come in, come in. The cottage looks smaller than you remember, dimmer. 2 of your half-siblings are there, the youngest, now 5, and your half-sister of 11. They stare curiously at the baby. Your father's in the field," your stepmother explains. "What brings you here?" You explain your question about your mother's healing supplies, watching her face carefully for a reaction. Something flickers in her eyes. Surprise, perhaps, or unease. "Most was used up or discarded," she says after a pause. "Your mother died in summer. Many plants don't keep beyond a season." But was there anything written? Records of her remedies? Recipes? Your stepmother shakes her head. "She couldn't write, child. Few women can." This makes sense, though it disappoints you. Still, something about her manner suggests she's not sharing everything. Is there anything of hers left? Anything at all? Your stepmother sighs, seemingly resigned. "There's a box. Your father could never bring himself to open it after she died. It's up in the rafters somewhere." She sends your half-sister to fetch it, a small wooden chest, plain but carefully made. Dust has settled into its crevices, testifying to years of neglect. "Take it," your stepmother says. "Better with you than gathering dust here." You thank her, strangely moved by this unexpected gift. Before leaving, you examine the box briefly. It's locked, with no key in sight. The key was on a cord around her neck, your stepmother explains, seeing your dilemma. "Buried with her, I expect." You nod, wrapping the box carefully to protect it on the journey home. Whatever secrets it contains will have to wait a little longer. Back at the bakery, Thomas examines the locked box with interest. "We could break it open," he suggests. You shake your head. "Not yet. It feels wrong somehow. Let me think about it." That night, you dream of your mother again. This time, she's showing you a plant with distinctive leaves, pointing urgently. When you wake, the image remains vivid in your mind. It takes you 3 days to identify the plant from your dream, a specific type of yarrow that grows near the old oak at the village crossroads. You harvest some, uncertain why you feel compelled to do so, and add it to your collection. Agnes visits a week after you've acquired the box, bringing a remedy for a nursing mother's cracked nipples. She notices the dusty chest immediately. "What's this then? Looks old." You explain its origin, showing her the lock without a key. She examines it with professional interest. "Your mother's secrets, eh? Seems a shame to leave them locked away." "I don't want to break it," you admit. "It feels disrespectful." Agnes nods, understanding. "There are ways to open locks without breaking them. Let me see it properly." She turns the box in her hands, studying the lock mechanism with narrowed eyes. Then, to your astonishment, she removes a thin metal tool from her pouch and inserts it into the keyhole, wiggling it with practiced precision. There's a soft click and the lock springs open. "How did you... You begin, amazed. Agnes shrugs. "Midwives need many skills. Sometimes we arrive to find a house locked and a woman alone in labour inside." She doesn't elaborate further, simply hands you the now open box. "Your mother's legacy. I'll leave you to discover it privately." After she departs, you sit with the box on your lap, Marta sleeping peacefully in her cradle nearby. Your hands tremble slightly as you lift the lid. Inside, you find a small collection of carefully preserved items, a bundle of dried herbs tied with faded ribbon, a tiny stoppered bottle containing dark liquid, several smooth stones of different colours, and at the bottom, something unexpected, a folded piece of parchment. With reverent fingers, you unfold it to reveal a crude drawing, a map of sorts, showing the village and surrounding areas with various plants sketched in specific locations. Though untrained, the artist had a good eye for plant details, making them easily identifiable. Your heart races. This is your mother's knowledge, preserved not in writing but in pictures, a map to her medicinal gardens, her special harvesting places, including, you note with a chill, the exact yarrow patch you dreamed about. Also in the box is a small wooden doll, crudely carved but with a distinctly female form. Around its neck is a tiny cord holding a miniature key, too small for the box itself but clearly symbolic. These objects represent a different kind of legacy than you expected, not formal recipes or medical texts, but personal, practical tools of a village healer, your mother's actual working implements, not just her knowledge. You understand now why your father couldn't bear to open this box, why your stepmother seemed uneasy about it. These items connect you directly to your mother in a way nothing has before. They confirm what the villagers have whispered, that she was not just casually skilled, but a dedicated, systematic healer with knowledge that deserved preserving. As you carefully replace the items in the box, you feel a profound sense of connection to the woman who died bringing you into the world. She's no longer just a tragic story, a cautionary tale. She's real, a healer who gathered specific plants, who made maps, who created remedies, who carved talismans. A woman not so different from yourself. You close the box, not bothering to relock it now that you know its contents. Your mother's legacy is not something to keep sealed away, but to integrate into your own practice, your own life. Outside, the first leaves are beginning to turn gold and crimson. Harvest time approaches, marking a full year since your wedding. Your daughter grows stronger daily, your body has healed from childbirth, and your reputation as a healer has solidified. You survived what your mother couldn't, and somehow, against all odds, you've recovered pieces of what was lost with her death. This box won't bring her back, nothing can do that, but it offers something you never expected to find, a connection, a continuation, evidence that some chains, once broken, can be forged anew. Winter arrives with a vengeance that year. Heavy snow blankets the village before All Saints' Day, and bitter winds howl through every crack in the bakery walls. Your daughter Marta, now nearly 6 months old, grows chubby despite the cold, thriving on your milk and the extra attention from her grandmother. The harsh weather brings the usual wave of winter ailments, coughs, fevers, chilblains, and worse. People trudge through knee-deep snow to reach you, desperate for remedies. "My youngest can't breathe proper," gasps the carpenter's wife one morning, her cloak crusted with ice. "Like last year, but worse. Please." You remember her son, the croup case that cemented your reputation. Without hesitation, you bundle Marta against your chest, gather your supplies, and follow the frantic mother back through the snow. The boy's condition is indeed worse than before. His lips have the blue tinge that strikes fear into any healer's heart. You set to work immediately, preparing a steam tent with stronger herbs than last time. "Hold him up," you instruct the mother, demonstrating the position. "Like this, so the phlegm can drain." As you work, you notice another child watching from the corner, a girl of perhaps 3, pale and wide-eyed. She's starting to cough too, the carpenter says grimly. Started last night, you nod, mentally adjusting your treatment plan. 2 sick children means a faster spreading illness, likely contagious. You'll need to treat them both and protect yourself and Marta. Bring her closer, you tell him. She can share the steam tent with her brother, and give me that pot. You prepare a second remedy, a preventative tea for the parents, for Marta, and for yourself. It's a mixture your mother had mapped in her box: elderflower, yarrow, and boneset. The jar of dried leaves had been labelled in crude pictographs that somehow made perfect sense to you. Drink this 3 times daily, you tell the carpenter and his wife. It won't stop the illness completely if you're already infected, but it will make it milder. For 3 days you visit the carpenter's family morning and evening. The boy slowly improves, though the girl develops a mild case as you predicted. By the 4th day, both children can breathe normally again, though their coughs will linger for weeks. Word spreads about your successful treatment. Soon, other families with sick children appear at your door. What begins as isolated cases clearly indicates a broader contagion sweeping through the village. You find yourself consulting your mother's box with increasing frequency. The map leads you to hidden patches of winter herbs, evergreen needles, witch hazel bark, dormant roots that still hold medicinal power beneath the frozen ground. The small bottle of dark liquid turns out to be a potent tincture that eases the worst coughing spasms when just a few drops are added to honey. Your mother-in-law watches your growing confidence with a mixture of approval and concern. You're becoming known beyond our village, she tells you one evening as you strain a batch of pine needle syrup. A woman from Westfield asked for you at the market today. Heard you cured the Cooper's twins. You look up sharply. Westfield? That's half a day's walk. She nods. Key. People travel for good healing. It's how reputations grow. She hesitates before adding, it's also how attention comes, not all of it welcome. You understand her warning. A woman with too much influence, too much independent power, risks unwelcome scrutiny from church and state alike. I'm just helping where I can, you say carefully. Nothing more. She gives you a knowing look. Your mother said the same, I'd wager. The comparison warms and unsettles you simultaneously. Pride in following your mother's path mingles with fear of meeting her fate. Not in childbirth, perhaps, but in some other form of premature ending. The winter epidemic keeps you busy well into February. Your herbs run low, forcing you to venture farther afield, following your mother's map to spots beyond the village boundaries. Thomas worries about these expeditions. At least take someone with you, he insists, after you return from one such trip with frost-nipped fingers and a haul of precious willow bark. It's not safe alone. Oh, who? You counter practically. You're needed at the ovens. Your father's too old for such treks, and your mother must watch Marta. He frowns, unable to argue with your logic, but still unhappy with the situation. The solution comes unexpectedly. Willem, the old cooper whose gout you treated in your early days as the baker's wife, appears at your door one snowy morning. Heard you've been foraging alone, he says without preamble. Not wise with wolves about this winter. You've heard the rumours. Livestock taken at the village edges, large tracks in the snow. Hunger drives predators closer to humans in harsh winters. I need certain barks and roots, you explain. They don't store well beyond a season, and my supplies are running low. Willem nods. So, take me with you. My joints pain me less when I keep moving, thanks to your remedies. And I still know how to swing an axe if wolves come. His offer surprises and touches you. You'd do that? You saved my livelihood, he says simply. Seems fair exchange. So begins an unexpected partnership. Every few days, when the weather allows, you and Willem venture into the winter woods. He carries a small axe and a staff, ostensibly for protection, but equally useful for digging roots from frozen ground or reaching high branches. You bring Marta, securely bundled against your chest, and baskets for your findings. Willem turns out to be knowledgeable about the forest in ways you aren't. Or see those tracks? He points to faint indentations in the snow. Deer passed through recently. Where deer feed, you'll often find your herbs nearby. He's right more often than not. Under his guidance, you discover new patches of medicinal plants not marked on your mother's map. You add them to her chart, expanding her legacy with your own discoveries. These expeditions serve another purpose too: education. As you walk, you explain to Willem what you're gathering and why. This pine sap, you demonstrate, carefully scraping sticky resin into a jar, mixed with beeswax and a little oil, makes a salve that draws infection from wounds. Willem listens attentively, occasionally offering forest lore in return. The old people said pine fights winter sickness because it stays green when all else dies. The life force remains strong. You neither confirm nor deny such folk beliefs. There's often wisdom hidden within them, even when the explanation sounds fanciful to modern ears. Life force or not, it works, you say diplomatically. That's what matters. On these journeys, you also talk to Marta, though she's too young to understand. You name plants as you gather them, describe their uses, tell stories about successful treatments. It feels important somehow, this one-sided conversation with your daughter, laying foundations for knowledge she may someday inherit. Your grandmother gathered from this very spot, you tell her one day, harvesting elderbark exactly where your mother's map indicated. Now your mother does, and someday perhaps you will too. This sense of continuity, of female knowledge preserved and transmitted across generations, sustains you through the bitter winter days. March brings thaws and new challenges. As snow melts, the first spring illnesses appear. Different from winter's dry coughs and fevers, now come the fluxes, the stomach ailments, infections from cuts sustained during spring planting and building repairs. Your healing work evolves with the seasons. The steam tents and warming syrups give way to cooling teas and poultices for wounds. Your mother's box continues to yield insights. The coloured stones turn out to mark specific treatments for specific ailments when arranged in patterns on her map. Agnes, the midwife, visits occasionally, both to check on Marta's development and to exchange healing knowledge. "You've gone well beyond midwifery," she observes one day, watching you prepare a complex tincture for the blacksmith's recurring lung complaint, into a healer's full territory. "Is that bad?" you ask, carefully counting drops of precious imported clove oil into the mixture. Agnes shrugs. "Depends who's watching. The monk who visits from the abbey wouldn't approve. Thinks women should stick to childbirth and leave proper medicine to men." "And what do you think?" "I think," Agnes says deliberately, "that healing is healing no matter who does it. But I also think a smart woman is careful who knows the full extent of her skills." You take her warning seriously. When the monk does make his seasonal visit to the village, you make yourself scarce, sending Thomas to buy any supplies from the abbey's store that you can't gather yourself. Not everyone is as cautious as you, however. Stories reach the village of a woman in a nearby town accused of witchcraft after her healing turned sour. A child she treated died despite her remedies. Though eventually released for lack of evidence, she was publicly whipped and banished from the region. Such tales chill your blood, especially when Thomas repeats what he overheard at the alehouse. Father Gregory was there, he tells you one night, voice low so his parents won't hear across the room, said the church must be vigilant against women who practice medicine beyond their proper sphere. Was he speaking of me? You ask, throat tight with sudden fear. Thomas shakes his head. Not by name, but he looked at Jacob the tanner when he said it, and everyone knows Jacob's wife brings their boy to you for his breathing troubles. You lie awake that night, Marta, sleeping peacefully beside you, and consider your options. You could stop your healing work entirely, focus solely on being a baker's wife and mother, the safest choice perhaps, but then you remember the blue-lipped children breathing easier after your treatments, the fevered elderly whose temperatures broke with your teas, the countless minor ailments eased because you had knowledge others lacked. No. You won't stop healing, but perhaps you can be more discreet, more careful in who you treat and how visibly. The next day you speak with your mother-in-law about your concerns. Though never especially warm, she's been a fair ally since Marta's birth. Father Gregory's been listening to that monk from the abbey, she confirms. Been talking about women overstepping their place, not naming names, but everyone knows who he means. What should I do? You ask bluntly. She considers this, her gnarled hands continuing to knead dough as she thinks. Don't stop, she says finally. Too many depend on you now, but perhaps the treatments could happen here less often. Where then? Agnes has that back room in her cottage, more private, away from the village centre, away from the church's windows. She looks at you meaningfully. A midwife treating women and children raises fewer eyebrows than a baker's wife doing the same. It's a sensible suggestion. Agnes, when approached, readily agrees. Been telling you this for months, she says briskly. Better to work together anyway. 4 hands make lighter work than 2. So your practice adapts again. Simple remedies, teas for headaches, salves for minor burns, tonics for monthly complaints. You still provide from home, but more complex cases, particularly anything that might raise suspicion, you treat at Agnes's cottage on the village edge. This arrangement works smoothly as spring advances towards summer. Your reputation continues to grow, but more discreetly now. Agnes provides a respectable front for your expanding knowledge. After all, you're merely assisting an established midwife, not practicing medicine independently. Thomas supports this compromise, though you sense his worry hasn't entirely abated. He's caught between pride in your abilities and fear for your safety. Just promise you'll be careful, he says one night, his hand resting protectively over Marta's sleeping form between you. She needs her mother. I need my wife. The simple declaration touches you deeply. Your marriage, begun as a practical arrangement, has grown into something warmer, something built on mutual respect and shared purpose. I promise, you tell him, and mean it. But careful intentions can't prevent the unexpected. In early summer, as the first real heat arrives, Thomas falls ill. It begins innocuously enough. Fatigue he attributes to long hours at the ovens, a mild cough he blames on flour dust. But when he wakes one morning too weak to rise, his skin burning with fever, you recognize the danger immediately. Not the bakery today, you say firmly, pressing him back when he tries to get up. You're ill. Can't leave father short-handed, he protests weakly, but lacks the strength to resist when you guide him back to the pallet. Your father-in-law is predictably unsympathetic. Summer's our busy time, he grumbles. Harvest workers need extra bread, can't manage the heavy sacks myself. He's your son, you remind him, anger flaring. Would you rather work him to death? The old man scowls, but doesn't argue further. Your mother-in-law, more practical, suggests a solution. The chandler's boy is strong and needs work. Hire him for a few days. With the immediate crisis of bakery staffing resolved, you turn your full attention to Thomas. His symptoms worry you. The fever is unusually high, the cough increasingly wet, and red spots have appeared on his chest. You recognize this constellation of symptoms from your mother's materials. One of her pictographs showed a similar pattern, labelled with markings you've come to understand represent danger. I need to consult Agnes, you tell your mother-in-law. Watch him. If his breathing changes or the spots spread, send for me immediately. Agnes confirms your fears when she sees Thomas later that day. Lung fever, she says grimly. The bad kind. 3 in the north end of the village have it already. Your stomach clenches. Will he survive? Agnes doesn't offer false comfort. Some do, some don't. Depends on their strength before falling ill. Thomas is young and well-fed, which favours him, but it's a serious matter. Together, you prepare the strongest remedies you know. Poultices of mustard for his chest. Teas of elder and bone set for the fever. A special syrup from your mother's recipe for the cough. Agnes contributes a rare fungus that grows on birch trees, known to fight the deepest infections. Every 4 hours, she instructs as you note the correct proportions. Day and night, missing doses could mean losing ground we can't regain. For the next week, you barely sleep. Your life narrows to a relentless cycle, preparing remedies, coaxing Thomas to swallow them, changing sweat-soaked bedding, monitoring his breathing, snatching moments to feed Marta, then beginning again. Your mother-in-law takes over Marta's care as much as possible, handling the bakery alongside her husband and the hired boy. She brings you food you barely taste, insists you rest during brief intervals when Thomas sleeps peacefully. Despite your exhaustion, you maintain precise records of Thomas's symptoms, his responses to treatments, any changes you observe. These notes, scratched on scraps of parchment, become your lifeline, a way to track minute improvements that might otherwise be missed in the blur of constant care. On the 4th night, Thomas takes a turn for the worse. His breathing becomes shallow and rapid, the fever spikes higher than ever, and the red spots darken alarmingly. He's drowning, Agnes says bluntly when you send for her. His lungs fill with fluid. Panic rises in your throat. What do we do? Agnes hesitates. There is one treatment, dangerous, but he'll surely die without it. She describes a procedure so radical it frightens you, using a hollow needle to drain fluid directly from the lungs. It's a technique she's seen performed only twice, once successfully and once not. The risk, you begin, is great, she finishes, but no greater than doing nothing. You make the hardest decision of your life. Show me how. Agnes describes the process in detail, demonstrating on a crude leather model she creates. You listen with desperate attention, asking questions, committing every step to memory. The needle must be sterilized in fire and wine, she emphasizes, and you must be absolutely certain of the location before you pierce. When preparations are complete, you explain the procedure to your in-laws as gently as possible. Your father-in-law turns ashen and walks out. Your mother-in-law stays, her face set in grim determination. Do what you must, she says simply. Save my son. The procedure itself passes in a blur of focused terror. You find the spot Agnes described, between specific ribs where percussion produces a dull sound rather than resonance. You sterilize the hollow needle, say a silent prayer to whatever powers might be listening, and push it carefully through skin and muscle. When cloudy fluid begins to drain, you nearly weep with relief. You found the right spot. Now comes the waiting, monitoring the flow, watching Thomas's colour, ready to withdraw the needle at the first sign of complications. By dawn, you've drained a significant amount of fluid, and Thomas's breathing has eased noticeably. The fever persists, but seems less intense. For the first time in days, he opens his eyes and seems to truly see you. "What happened?" he asks, voice barely a whisper. "You've been very ill," you tell him, smoothing his sweat-damp hair, "but you're improving now." He drifts back to sleep, but it's a healing sleep this time, not the restless unconsciousness of severe fever. Agnes returns mid-morning, examines Thomas, and nods with cautious approval. "Well done," she says quietly. "I wasn't sure you'd manage it." "Neither was I," you admit. "But there was no choice." She gives you a long look. "Remember that feeling. No healer can save everyone, but we're obligated to try everything possible for those under our care." She pauses. "That's what separates us from witches. Whatever the priests may say, we work with God's natural order, not against it." Thomas's recovery is slow but steady. The dangerous drainage procedure isn't needed again, though you monitor him closely for signs of fluid returning. After a fortnight, he's well enough to sit up. After another week, he can walk short distances. Word of his recovery spreads, as does news of the unusual treatment that saved him. Most villagers react with awe and gratitude, but not everyone. Father Gregory corners you after church, his expression severe. "I understand you performed surgery on your husband," he says, the word surgery sounding like an accusation, a procedure requiring knowledge no woman should possess. You meet his gaze steadily, too exhausted from weeks of caregiving to summon proper deference. "I performed a procedure that saved his life, Father, with God's guidance." "Guidance?" he repeats skeptically. "Or perhaps other influences?" The implication hangs in the air between you. You understand precisely what he's suggesting. "My only influence was Agnes the midwife, who has served this village faithfully for 30 years, you say carefully. "And prayer, of course?" He studies your face, searching for signs of deception or defiance. Finding none obvious enough to pursue, he merely says, "See that you remember a woman's proper place, good wife Baker. The church watches over its flock, especially the straying lambs." The warning is clear. You've drawn attention from exactly the quarter Agnes cautioned against. The question now is what to do about it. Thomas, still weak but improving daily, notices your preoccupation. "What troubles you?" he asks one evening as you sit together, watching Marta practice her new skill of rolling over. "I'm healing well." You hesitate, reluctant to burden him during his recovery, but partnership means honesty. "Father Gregory," you admit, "he disapproves of how I treated your illness." Thomas's expression darkens. Does he disapprove of having a living parishioner rather than a dead one? Because that was the choice. His fierce defense warms you, but doesn't resolve your dilemma. "He implied witchcraft." The word falls between you like a stone. Thomas's face pales. "He wouldn't dare. Not without evidence." "Not yet," you agree. But he's watching now, waiting. Thomas reaches for your hand, gripping it with what strength he's regained. "Then we must be careful, very careful." You nod, but internally you wonder, is being careful enough? Or has your success as a healer, ironically, created the greatest threat you've faced yet? As summer ripens toward harvest, you find yourself at a crossroads. Continue as you are and risk growing suspicion from church authorities. Pull back, deny your gift, and watch neighbors suffer without your help. Neither option sits comfortably. For now, you choose a middle path. You treat only the most desperate cases. You frame all your work explicitly in Christian terms, prayers with each remedy, crosses marked on salves, invocations of saints appropriate to each ailment. You ensure Agnes is present whenever possible, her decades of accepted service providing a shield of respectability. It's an uneasy compromise, but as Thomas regains his strength and Marta grows more active daily, you feel a fierce determination to protect what you've built, this family, this knowledge, this place in the world you've carved for yourself. You've survived childbirth when your mother couldn't. You've built a healing practice despite limited education and resources. You've saved your husband from a deadly illness that would have taken him without your intervention. These victories matter. They're worth defending, worth fighting for, even if the fight has only just begun. Time slides forward, as it always does, measured now in your daughter's milestones rather than seasons alone. Marta speaks her first word, bread, unsurprisingly, takes her first steps, cuts her first tooth. Her second winter comes and goes. Her hair grows into dark curls like Thomas's, but her eyes, everyone says they're your mother's eyes, though you have no way to confirm this yourself. You mark her second birthday with a rare treat, a small cake sweetened with precious honey. Thomas carves her a wooden doll, simple but lovingly made. Your mother-in-law sews a tiny apron, already preparing her granddaughter for a life of service. As Marta grows, so does your reputation. Despite your attempts at discretion, word of Thomas's miraculous recovery spread far beyond the village. The drainage procedure you performed is spoken of with awe, almost as a resurrection rather than a medical intervention. God guided your hand, the devout insist when they come seeking help for their own families. Your mother's gift, the older villagers murmur, crossing themselves just in case. You don't correct either interpretation. In your experience, people's beliefs often contribute to their healing. If faith in divine intervention or inherited magic makes a patient more receptive to treatment, so be it. The reality, as you understand it, is both simpler and more complex. Knowledge accumulated through careful observation, passed from healer to healer, refined by trial and error. Your mother's box continues to yield insights as you decode her system of marks and maps. Agnes shares techniques learned through decades of practice, and you add your own discoveries, keeping meticulous records of treatments and outcomes. Your little family prospers, though not extravagantly. Payment for your remedies remains mostly in goods rather than coin. A length of fine wool, a chicken for the pot, services like roof repairs or new shoes for Marta. Thomas's bakery work provides daily bread and basic necessities. Between the two incomes, you live better than most in the village. This relative comfort brings its own complications. Envy simmers among some neighbours, particularly those who view your healing as somehow improper. Comments reach your ears through well-meaning friends. Unnatural. How well they live with just a baker's wages. The child never sickens, even when fever takes half the village children. Strange herbs hanging in their rafters. Foreign things no one can name. Agnes warns you about these whispers during one of your regular sessions at her cottage. People fear what they don't understand, she says, showing you how to set a dislocated joint using a cloth dummy she's made. And nothing's less understood than a woman who knows her own mind. I'm hardly the only woman with opinions in the village, you argue, practicing the quick motion that pops the joint back into place. Agnes snorts. Opinions are one thing, knowledge is another, especially knowledge that works when the priest's prayers and the monk's tinctures fail. She eyes you critically. You saved too many during the spring flux, made it look too easy. The observation startles you. Should I have let them suffer? Let some die to appear less skilled? Of course not, she replies impatiently, but perhaps you could appear to struggle more, pray louder, credit God and the saints more visibly. She demonstrates the joint technique again, her gnarled hands still surprisingly strong. The truly powerful learn to seem less powerful. It's how they survive. You take her advice to heart, adjusting your public approach if not your private methods. You speak more of divine guidance, less of specific remedies. You recommend prayer alongside treatment. You express appropriate humility when patients recover, appropriate sorrow when they don't. It helps, but doesn't entirely resolve the undercurrent of suspicion. Father Gregory still watches you during church services, his gaze cold and assessing. The visiting monk asks pointed questions about your remedies when he comes through the village quarterly. Merely simple women's treatments, you tell him modestly. Things my mother-in-law taught me. Your actual mother-in-law, present for this exchange, plays along perfectly. Just herbs for common ailments, brother. Nothing fancy. The monk seems unconvinced, but lacks grounds for further accusation, for now. Meanwhile, Marta approaches her 3rd year, growing from baby to little girl before your eyes. She follows you constantly now, watching your work with solemn attention. "What's that, Mama?" she asks repeatedly, pointing to herbs, remedies, tools. You name each item, explain its use in the simplest terms. Whether she truly understands doesn't matter yet. Like your one-sided conversations during her infancy, these explanations lay foundations for future knowledge. Thomas notices this education with mixed feelings. She has your gift with plants, he observes one evening, watching Marta correctly identify lavender and thyme in a basket of mixed herbs. Remembers everything you tell her. Is that bad, you ask, hearing the ambivalence in his tone. He sighs. I want her to have choices more than you had. The comment surprises you. What choices would you have her make? I don't know. Something safer, perhaps. He meets your eyes. Something that won't have her watched by priests and monks, wondering if today's the day she'll be accused of witchcraft. You can't argue with his fear. It mirrors your own, but neither can you imagine deliberately withholding knowledge that might someday save Marta's life or the lives of those she loves. Knowledge itself isn't dangerous, you say carefully, only how it's used and perceived. She'll learn discretion along with remedies. Thomas doesn't seem entirely convinced, but nods slowly. Just remember, she's a child, too young to guard her words. If she speaks of certain things to the wrong ears. He doesn't need to finish the thought. You've both seen what happens to those accused of dark practices, even without formal charges of witchcraft. The public humiliation, the suspicion that never fully fades, the closed doors and crossed looks that can destroy a family's standing in a small community. You're more careful after that conversation, limiting Marta's exposure to your more unusual remedies and techniques. She still learns the common herbs and simple preparations, but the contents of your mother's box remain hidden, brought out only when she's asleep or away with her grandmother. This caution proves wise when Marta innocently repeats one of your offhand comments to the priest's housekeeper. Mama says prayer works better with proper medicine than without, she announces proudly while you're buying candles one market day. The housekeeper's eyebrows rise. Does she now? And what does your mama consider proper medicine? You intervene smoothly. The remedy sanctioned by the church, of course. Herbs created by God for healing, as mentioned in scripture. You smile pleasantly while gripping Marta's hand in warning. We're late for the baker's stall. Good day. That night, you have a serious talk with your daughter about what can and cannot be said outside your home. She's too young to fully understand the politics and dangers involved, but she grasps that some family matters must remain private. Like secrets? She asks, eyes wide. Like family traditions, you correct gently. Things passed from mother to daughter that others might not understand. Whether the distinction means anything to her 3-year-old mind is questionable, but she nods solemnly. I won't tell Father Gregory about the special herbs anymore. Your heart freezes. What special herbs, love? When did you speak to Father Gregory? She shrugs with a child's casual disregard for adult concerns. When you were helping old Martha with her cough, he asked what you were giving her. You maintain a calm expression with effort. And what did you tell him? That it was the red jar, the one that smells like Christmas. Relief floods you. She means the pine and cinnamon syrup. Nothing unusual or suspicious there. Still, the incident reinforces the need for caution. The priest is actively questioning your child about your treatments. The thought chills you to the bone. Thomas is furious when you tell him that night. He had no right questioning a child behind her mother's back. Keep your voice down, you caution, glancing at Marta's sleeping form and your in-laws in the far corner. Nothing came of it this time, but we must be more careful. Perhaps you should stop, Thomas says, voice dropping to a whisper, just for a while, until suspicion eases. You shake your head. I can't. Not now. You place his hand on your abdomen, still flat but harbouring a secret you've been certain of for 2 weeks now. His eyes widen in understanding. Another child? You nod. Due in winter, I need my remedies more than ever to ensure a safe delivery. Thomas's expression cycles through shock, joy, and renewed fear. All the more reason to avoid attention, to focus on family matters. I'll be careful, you promise, but I won't stop helping people who need me, especially not now. You don't elaborate, but Thomas understands. Another pregnancy means renewed risk of your mother's fate, death in childbirth. The remedies and knowledge you've accumulated are your best defense against that outcome. The pregnancy progresses without complication through summer and into autumn. Unlike with Marta, you're able to continue most normal activities, working in the bakery, treating patients, now mostly at Agnes's cottage, caring for your increasingly independent daughter. Agnes monitors you closely, approving of the preventative teas you drink daily and the careful records you keep of your body's changes. Strong heartbeat, she declares at each examination, good position, all signs favourable. You allow yourself cautious optimism. This time, you know so much more than with Marta. This time, you're prepared for complications. This time, you have Agnes's experience and your mother's knowledge combined with your own. Even Father Gregory seems to moderate his suspicion as your pregnancy becomes visible. Perhaps even he hesitates to target an expectant mother, or perhaps the obvious blessing of fertility softens his view of your other activities. Whatever the reason, church services become less uncomfortable, his scrutiny less obvious. This relative peace shatters one crisp autumn day when a stranger arrives in the village, a man wearing the distinctive robe of an inquisitor's assistant. He takes a room at the alehouse and begins asking questions about local customs, about healers in the region, about unusual occurrences or unexplained recoveries. Word reaches you through Willem, who still accompanies you on herb-gathering expeditions when weather allows. Best lie low, he advises grimly. He was asking specifically about women with unusual knowledge of medicines. Your stomach clenches with fear, but you force yourself to think logically. Did he name me? Willem shakes his head. Not directly, but he mentioned reports of a young woman with healing abilities beyond the ordinary. Said several church officials have noted her activities. Several officials, not just Father Gregory then. Your reputation has spread further than you realized, reaching ears with real power to harm. I should leave, you say, half to yourself. Take Thomas and Marta somewhere new. Start fresh. And go where? Willem counters practically. With winter coming. With child. He gestures to your rounded belly. Besides, running looks like guilt. He's right, though the knowledge offers little comfort. You're effectively trapped by your pregnancy, by the approaching winter, by your family's ties to the village and bakery. Thomas is equally alarmed when you tell him about the Inquisitor's assistant. We should speak to Father Gregory, he suggests, surprising you. Make peace somehow. Perhaps he can vouch for your character. You consider this doubtfully. He's been among my strongest critics. But he knows you. These inquisitors don't. They only have reports and rumours. Thomas takes your hands. It's worth trying, for the children's sake. So you find yourself, against all instinct, requesting a private meeting with the very priest who has regarded your healing work with such suspicion. He receives you in the church's small side room, his expression guarded but not overtly hostile. Goodwife Baker, what brings you here? You choose honesty or a version of it. I understand an inquisitor's assistant is asking questions about healers in the region. I fear misunderstandings about my work with Agnes the midwife. He studies you, fingers steepled beneath his chin. And what misunderstandings might those be? You take a deep breath. I practice only simple herbcraft, Father. Remedies passed down through generations of women, always with prayer and reverence for God's creation. Never anything improper. Improper, he repeats. An interesting choice of word, not magical or forbidden. I wouldn't know what constitutes magical remedies, you say carefully. I use only plants and preparations Agnes has approved, many of which are used by the Abbey's own healers. This is not entirely true. Your mother's box contains several remedies you've never shared with Agnes, but close enough to be defensible. Father Gregory regards you silently for a long moment. You performed surgery on your husband, a procedure requiring knowledge of human anatomy few women possess. Agnes guided me, you reply. She has attended countless births and deaths. Such experience teaches much about the body's workings. Another partial truth. Agnes had described the procedure, but you had performed it with a confidence that surprised you both, as if your hands remembered skills your mind had never learned. And the child who was drowning in his own lungs, the carpenter's son, I understand you performed the same procedure on him last month. Your heart sinks. You'd hoped that incident hadn't reached his ears. The boy had been near death, his parents desperate. You'd had no choice. His parents requested it, you say, which is true, after seeing how it saved Thomas. Indeed, the priest leans forward. Let me speak plainly, Goodwife Baker. Your activities have drawn attention far beyond this village. The Archbishop himself has received reports of a woman practicing medicine beyond her station, performing procedures that border on the unnatural. Your mouth goes dry, the Archbishop. This is far more serious than you'd feared. I've done nothing wrong, you insist. I've helped where I could, eased suffering when possible. Is this not Christ's teaching? Christ healed through divine power, Father Gregory counters, not through knives and unknown herbs. You bite back a reminder that Christ's apostle Luke was himself a physician. This is not the time for theological debate. What would you have me do, you ask simply. He seems almost surprised by the direct question. After a moment, he sighs, "Confess to overstepping your proper role. Do public penance. Swear to limit yourself to women's complaints and children's minor ailments henceforth. Leave serious cases to the monk physicians or God's will." The terms are both better and worse than you expected. No formal accusation of witchcraft, but effective prohibition of your most important work. "And if I agree to this," you press, "will you speak to the Inquisitor's man on my behalf?" Father Gregory nods slowly. "I would inform him that the matter has been addressed appropriately through church discipline, that further investigation seems unnecessary." You weigh your options, which seem painfully few. Public penance would be humiliating but brief. The restrictions on your practice would be harder to bear, but perhaps temporary, enforceable only while scrutiny remains high. Most importantly, this compromise would protect your family from deeper investigation. "I will do as you suggest," you say finally, the words ashen in your mouth. Father Gregory's expression shows momentary surprise before settling into satisfied solemnity. He clearly hadn't expected such ready compliance. "Wise decision," he says. "Come to Sunday services prepared for public confession. Wear plain clothes, no adornment. Bring a candle as offering." You nod, already calculating how to present this to Thomas and your in-laws. As you rise to leave, Father Gregory adds, "Until then, you will cease all healing work. No exceptions." "Even for family?" you ask, thinking of Marta, of your pregnancy. "Family care is a wife's duty," he concedes, "but nothing beyond your household. Is that clear?" "Yes, Father," you agree, though internally you're already passing the definition of household and family for loopholes. Thomas receives the news with mixed relief and outrage. Public confession, as if you've committed some sin by saving lives? "It's a formality," you assure him, though the upcoming humiliation sits like a stone in your stomach. "A show to satisfy the Inquisitor's man. Better this than real accusations." Your in-laws react differently. Your father-in-law merely grunts that it's about time you focused properly on bakery matters. Your mother-in-law, however, shows unexpected empathy. "I had an aunt," she tells you quietly while kneading dough. "In my home village, she knew herbs, helped women with difficult births. They drove her out when a noble's wife died under her care, claimed she'd used ungodly means, though it was childbed fever that took the lady, plain as day." The story chills you. What happened to her? "She went north, found another village that needed a healer more than it feared women's knowledge. She punches the dough with surprising force, lived to old age there, or so we heard. The tale offers both warning and hope. Survival is possible, even after the worst accusations, but sometimes requires painful sacrifices. Agnes is predictably furious when you explain the situation. Narrow-minded fools, she seethes, letting people suffer for their pride and prejudice. "It's temporary," you tell her, hoping it's true. "Until the Inquisitor's man leaves at least." She makes a dismissive noise. "And when the next one comes? Or when someone dies because your treatments weren't available?" She shakes her head grimly. "This won't end with one confession, girl. Once they start limiting your knowledge, they'll never stop." You fear she's right, but see no alternative for now. "I need to protect my family, my children." Agnes's anger softens slightly. "I understand, but remember, knowledge preserved is itself a form of resistance. Keep learning, keep recording, even if you can't practice openly now. This becomes your compromise with conscience, outward compliance while maintaining your skills in secret." You continue studying your mother's materials, continue preparing remedies for family use, continue documenting cases Agnes treats, learning through observation when you cannot treat patients directly. Sunday arrives too quickly. You dress plainly as instructed, your pregnant belly prominent beneath the simple gown. Marta, confused by the solemn atmosphere, clings to Thomas's hand as you approach the church. Neighbors watch with expressions ranging from sympathy to vindication. Word has spread about what's to come. The confession itself is both worse and better than anticipated. Worse in the public shame, standing before the congregation while Father Gregory recites your transgressions, practicing medicine beyond a woman's proper knowledge, performing procedures without church sanction, creating remedies from questionable sources. Better in that the priest doesn't mention witchcraft explicitly, frames your actions as pride and overreaching rather than heresy. The penance assigned is relatively light: prayers, fasting on Fridays, a donation to the church poor box. Most importantly, the inquisitor's assistant observes but doesn't intervene, seemingly satisfied with this ecclesiastical handling of the matter. "It's done," Thomas whispers as you leave the church, neighbors carefully not meeting your eyes. "We can move forward now, but you're not convinced it's truly over." Something in the inquisitor's assistant's cold gaze suggested calculation rather than closure, as if he's merely gathering information for future use. That night, as Thomas sleeps beside you, you place protective hands over your swollen belly and whisper to your unborn child, "I'll keep you safe, you promise. Whatever it takes." The baby shifts beneath your palms, a strong kick against your right hand. A fighter already, you'll need that strength, both of you, for whatever comes next, because despite the public confession, despite your outward compliance, you know one thing with bone-deep certainty: you cannot, will not abandon the knowledge that has become your identity, your purpose, your legacy from mother to daughter. The question isn't whether you'll continue healing, but how, and at what cost. Winter descends early that year, as if eager to trap you within the confines of the village and its gossip. Heavy snow falls before Martinmas, sealing the roads and forcing everyone closer together than comfort allows. Your belly grows heavier with each passing week. The baby is active, sometimes almost violently so, kicking and rolling in ways that make Marta's movements in the womb seem gentle by comparison. Another boy, your mother-in-law predicts, watching you wince as a particularly strong kick catches your ribs. Girls don't fight their way into the world like that. Though you've officially stopped your healing practice, word still reaches you through whispers and casual encounters. Who's ill? Who's injured? Who's failing despite the monk's treatments? Agnes serves as your eyes and hands in the community, relaying information and occasionally smuggling your remedies to those most in need. 3 new cases of winter fever in the North End, she reports during one of her regular visits, ostensibly to check your pregnancy, but really to exchange information. The tanner's youngest isn't expected to last the week. Your hands itch with the need to help, to prepare the fever remedy you know would save the child. But the inquisitor's assistant remains in the village, watching, listening, gathering evidence of practices that deviate from church-approved medicine. "I can't risk it," you tell Agnes, your voice thick with frustration. "Not now, not with the baby coming." She nods, understanding. "I've done what I can for them. Not as good as your remedies, but better than nothing." The inquisitor's assistant, Brother Martin, you've learned his name, has extended his stay far beyond the usual passing visit. He's taken up semi-permanent residence at the alehouse, his expenses covered by the Archbishop's office, a fact that underscores the seriousness of his mission. He makes no direct accusations, conducts no formal interrogations. Instead, he observes, listens, takes notes in a small book he keeps close, attends every church service, watching the congregation with cold, assessing eyes. His gaze falls on you often, tracking your movements, noting who speaks with you and for how long. You feel it like a physical weight pressing against your back as you kneel in prayer, hovering over your shoulder as you purchase supplies in the market. "He's building a case," Thomas says grimly after one Sunday service. But against whom and for what? The answer comes unexpectedly through Marta. Playing with the Chandlers' children one afternoon, she overhears their father speaking with Brother Martin. "The baker's wife isn't the only one," she reports innocently at dinner. "Brother Martin says there's a whole coven in the region. Your blood turns to ice." "A what, love?" "A coven," she repeats carefully. "What's a coven, Mama?" You exchange alarmed glances with Thomas. "Where did you hear this word?" "From Brother Martin. He was talking to Master Chandler. Said he's tracking a coven of women who work against God's will." You managed to maintain a calm expression despite your racing heart. "It's a group of birds," you lie smoothly. "Like a flock. Brother Martin must have been talking about the ravens that steal from the Chandler's tallow stores." Marta accepts this explanation easily, but the implications terrify you. Brother Martin isn't investigating isolated cases of women overstepping their proper knowledge. He's constructing a narrative of organized heresy, a coven, which carries far graver consequences than individual transgressions. Later, alone with Thomas, you voice your fears. A coven accusation means multiple arrests, multiple confessions. Under torture, people will say anything to make the pain stop. Thomas paces the small room, face drawn with worry. "We should leave, now, before the snows make it impossible." "And go where?" you ask, echoing Willem's practical question from weeks ago. "With me ready to deliver any day? With your parents dependent on the bakery income?" He has no answer. You're trapped not just by weather and circumstance, but by the web of obligations and connections that define village life. That night, the first labour pains begin, a month earlier than expected. You wake to a familiar tightening across your lower back, a cramping sensation that comes in waves. "Too soon," you whisper to Thomas in the darkness. "The baby's coming too soon." He's immediately alert, fear evident in his voice. "I'll get Agnes." Or wait. You grasp his arm, counting breaths as the contraction builds and fades. Not yet. Early labour can last days with a first child. This one might be quicker, but there's time still. You know the risks of premature birth all too well. Tiny infants often struggle to breathe, to nurse, to maintain their body heat. Many don't survive their first week, but you've prepared for this possibility, creating remedies specifically to strengthen a baby born too early. By dawn, the contractions have established a steady rhythm. Thomas fetches Agnes while your mother-in-law takes Marta to the main room of the bakery, distracting her with simple tasks to keep her from witnessing the birth. Agnes arrives quickly, her experienced hands examining your belly with gentle efficiency. "Small but well-positioned," she pronounces after checking the baby's placement. "And you're progressing faster than with Marta. This one's eager to meet the world." The labour intensifies rapidly, nothing like the long, gradual process of your first birth. Pain crashes through you in waves that leave little recovery time between. "This is normal for second babies," Agnes assures you, though her furrowed brow suggests concern. "The body remembers the path." You try to focus on her words, on the techniques she taught you for managing pain, but this labour feels different, fiercer, more urgent. By midday, you're fully dilated, the urge to push overwhelming. "Now," Agnes instructs, "work with your body, push with the pain." The second birth proves both easier and harder than the first. Easier in the pushing stage, which lasts minutes rather than hours, harder in its intensity, the sheer force of sensation threatening to overwhelm you. With a final guttural cry that you barely recognize as your own voice, you feel the baby slip from your body into Agnes's waiting hands. A thin, wavering wail fills the room, weaker than Marta's lusty first cry, but present, alive. A boy, Agnes announces, quickly cleaning his face and airway. Small, but fighting. She places the tiny infant on your chest. He's noticeably smaller than Marta was, his skin slightly bluish, his limbs thin and frail, but his eyes, when they briefly flicker open, are alert and dark. His tiny hands grasp reflexively when you touch his palm. The afterbirth, Agnes reminds you gently. Unlike with Marta, where the afterbirth delivered easily, this time something feels wrong. The contractions continue painfully, but nothing progresses. After several minutes, Agnes's expression grows concerned. "It's not releasing properly," she says, her voice deliberately calm. "I need to help it along." You understand immediately what this means. She must reach inside to manually separate and remove the placenta. It's a dangerous procedure, risking infection and hemorrhage, but leaving the afterbirth inside is even more dangerous. Do it, you consent, bracing yourself. The pain is extraordinary, a different quality than childbirth itself, sharper, more invasive. You bite down on a folded cloth to keep from screaming, aware that Marta is somewhere in the house and might be frightened. After what feels like eternity but is probably only minutes, Agnes withdraws her hand, the troublesome afterbirth removed. She examines it carefully. "Complete," she pronounces with evident relief. Nothing left inside. But the bleeding doesn't slow as it should. You feel the warm wetness beneath you increasing rather than diminishing. See the alarm in Agnes's eyes as she packs clean cloths against you. The shepherd's purse tincture you direct, suddenly clinical despite your own danger. In my box, the small blue bottle. Thomas, who has been hovering anxiously nearby, rushes to retrieve it. Agnes administers the potent herbal remedy, which you prepared months ago specifically for this complication. "This will work," you whisper, as much to convince yourself as anyone else. It must work. While waiting for the tincture to take effect, Agnes shows Thomas how to care for the newborn, who needs extra warmth due to his small size. They place him in a basket near the fire, wrapped in soft wool. Gradually, the bleeding slows, then stops. The shepherd's purse has done its work, contracting your womb and sealing the blood vessels. Exhausted but stable, you're cleaned, changed, and helped to a fresh palate. "You need to name him soon," Agnes advises, a touch of superstition in her practical voice. "Early babies need naming right away. Helps them stay in this world." Thomas brings your son to you, the tiny bundle dwarfed in his baker's hands. "What shall we call him?" You look down at the small, determined face. Despite his size, there's a fighter's spirit evident in his features. "John," you decide, "after your father." Your father-in-law, informed of his namesake, shows the first real emotion you've ever witnessed from him, eyes suspiciously bright as he gruffly approves the choice. The birth of a son, especially one named for his grandfather, temporarily eclipses the village's suspicions. Neighbours who have avoided you since your public confession bring small gifts for the baby. A knitted cap, a tiny wooden toy, a special herb for colic tied with blue ribbon. Brother Martin even offers congratulations after Sunday services, though his eyes remain calculating as they take in your weakened state, the small bundle in your arms. "God has blessed you despite your transgressions," he observes, his tone making the blessing sound more like a threat. "A male child is a sign of divine favor." You murmur appropriate thanks, clutching John closer, acutely aware of how vulnerable both of you are in this moment. Recovery from this birth comes slower than with Marta. The blood loss, the premature delivery, the strain of constant anxiety all take their toll on your body. For weeks you struggle with exhaustion so profound it feels like illness. John, too, faces challenges. His small size makes nursing difficult. He lacks the strength to suckle effectively for long periods. You devise a system of expressing milk into a cloth, then letting him suck the nourishment from it, a technique you once helped a mother of twins develop. Your mother-in-law proves unexpectedly supportive during this difficult time, caring for Marta, managing household tasks, even defending your need for rest against her husband's complaints about bakery work being neglected. The boy needs his mother strong, she says firmly, when your father-in-law grumbles about extra help being hired. You want your namesake to thrive? Let her heal properly. This period of enforced rest gives you time for reflection about your practice, your knowledge, your future. Agnes visits regularly, bringing news of the village along with practical help for you and the baby. The tanner's child died, she reports grimly during one visit. The one with winter fever. Brother Martin attended the burial, asked questions about previous illnesses in the family who had treated them. The information sends a chill through you despite the fire's warmth. He's still building his case. Not just against you, Agnes confirms. He's asking about me, about the chandler's sister who knows bone setting, about the blacksmith's wife who helps with difficult births. Any woman with healing knowledge. The pattern becomes clear. Brother Martin's coven investigation targets every female healer in the region. It's a systematic attempt to eliminate women's traditional medical knowledge, to place healing solely in the hands of church-approved male practitioners. Why now? You wonder aloud. Women have been healing since time began. Agnes's expression darkens. The new archbishop. He studied at the university in Paris, where they teach that women are inherently corrupt vessels, incapable of proper medical understanding. He believes women healers must be using unholy means, since our minds are too weak for true knowledge. The injustice burns like bile in your throat. So if we're ignorant, we're harmless but useless. If we're knowledgeable, we must be in league with the devil. No way to win. No way to win openly, Agnes corrects, lowering her voice though no one else is present. But knowledge can go underground, be preserved in secret until saner times return. Her words spark an idea, a way to protect what you've learned, what your mother preserved, what you hope to pass to Marta someday. Not through direct teaching, which has become too dangerous, but through disguise, through hiding in plain sight. As your strength gradually returns and John begins to gain weight, you implement this plan. You create a new system of organizing your remedies, storing them in ordinary kitchen containers, labeling them with innocent names that only you would recognize as code. Fever remedies become winter preserves. Wound treatments are leather polish. Birth preparations are special tea for women's comfort. You integrate your healing supplies with normal household items, hiding their true purpose from casual observation. More importantly, you begin a new method of record keeping. Rather than written notes which could be discovered and used as evidence, you create patterns in your embroidery, specific stitches, colours and designs that encode recipes, dosages and treatments. Teaching me household skills, you explain when Thomas questions the sudden interest in needlework. Understanding dawns in his eyes, and he nods approval of the clever disguise. This system allows you to continue accumulating and preserving knowledge while maintaining the appearance of having abandoned healing work. It's an imperfect solution, but the best compromise between safety and purpose you can devise. Winter deepens, bringing the usual hardships. Food stores dwindle, firewood becomes precious, illness spreads through the close-quartered village. You hear of deaths, mostly the very old and very young, and force yourself not to think about who might have been saved with proper treatment. John grows slowly but steadily, his initial frailty giving way to surprising resilience. By midwinter, he's nursing properly, his weight approaching normal for his age. Marta adapts to her role as elder sister with pride, fetching clean cloths and singing made-up lullabies to her brother. She has your gentleness, Thomas observes one evening, watching Marta carefully tuck a blanket around the sleeping baby. And your healing touch. You smile, though the observation carries a shadow of worry. Will Marta's natural inclinations toward caregiving eventually place her in the same danger you now face? Is the legacy you hope to preserve for her actually a burden? A risk? These questions haunt your thoughts during the long winter nights. But before you can resolve them, disaster strikes from an unexpected quarter. Thomas falls ill again, not with the lung fever that nearly claimed him before, but with something equally serious, a high fever accompanied by a red, spreading rash that begins at his neck and moves rapidly across his chest and back. You recognize the symptoms immediately from your mother's pictographs. St. Anthony's fire, a dangerous condition that can lead to madness and death if untreated. The monastery's standard treatment, bleeding and cold water applications, often does more harm than good. Your mother's box contains a specific remedy, a tincture made from a particular fungus that grows on rye. Used properly, in careful doses, it can calm the fire in the blood. Used improperly, it's deadly poison. This presents an impossible choice. Treat Thomas secretly, risking accusation if discovered, or watch him suffer, possibly die under the monk's inadequate care. Help him, your mother-in-law urges when the monk leaves after his first visit, having done nothing but offer prayers and order fasting. I know you can. I've seen your remedies work before. If I'm caught, you begin. If he dies, what difference will it make? She counters with brutal practicality. Save my son, whatever the risk. Against all prudence, you retrieve the hidden remedy from its disguised container. The dosage must be precise, enough to treat the inflammation without causing worse symptoms. You measure with shaking hands, diluting the tincture carefully before administering it in spoonfuls of broth. What is it? Thomas asks weakly, lucid enough to recognize the distinctive taste beneath the soup's flavor. Medicine, you answer simply. It will help. He doesn't question further, trusting you completely despite the danger your treatment represents. This trust is both gift and burden. The faith that you can save him, the responsibility if you fail. For 3 days you maintain the careful regimen, hiding evidence whenever the monk returns to check Thomas's condition. The rash gradually recedes, the fever lowers. By the 4th day, Thomas can sit up, take solid food, speak coherently for extended periods. The monk attributes the recovery to his prayers and Thomas's fasting. Your mother-in-law keeps her own counsel, but her knowing looks speak volumes. Your father-in-law merely grunts that it's about time Thomas returned to work, the bakery's suffering in his absence. Just as you begin to believe the crisis has passed without discovery, catastrophe arrives at your door in the form of Brother Martin, accompanied by Father Gregory and 2 unfamiliar men. Thomas Baker, Brother Martin announces formally, we must speak with you regarding your recovery. Your blood freezes. Thomas, still weak from his illness, stands unsteadily, placing himself between the visitors and your family. What about it? He asks, voice hoarse but firm. Brother Martin's cold eyes shift to you momentarily before returning to Thomas. Several witnesses report unusual activities during your illness, substances administered that the treating monk did not prescribe. We have reason to believe ungodly methods were employed in your cure. What witnesses? Thomas demands. What ungodly methods? I was treated with prayer and fasting as the monk ordered. And nothing else? Father Gregory presses. No special remedies? No treatments from your wife? The trap is laid perfectly. If Thomas lies and is later contradicted by witnesses, he becomes complicit in heretical practices. If he admits to your treatment, you face immediate arrest. Before Thomas can answer, your mother-in-law steps forward, her expression serene despite the danger. I treated my son, she announces clearly, with an old family remedy my mother taught me for such rashes, a poultice of common herbs, nothing exotic, nothing forbidden. Ask anyone in our home village. It's a treatment handed down through generations. Brother Martin's eyes narrow skeptically. You? Not your daughter-in-law with her known history of improper medical practice? My daughter-in-law was occupied with her newborn and young daughter, your mother-in-law replies smoothly. She had neither time nor strength for nursing duties. I tended my son myself. The room falls silent as Brother Martin weighs this testimony. Father Gregory's expression suggests he doesn't fully believe it, but has no immediate evidence to contradict it. The two strangers, Inquisitor's guards you realize belatedly, watch impassively, hands resting on weapon hilts. We shall investigate this claim, Brother Martin says finally. If it proves false, he lets the threat hang unfinished. After they depart, Thomas turns to his mother with a mixture of gratitude and fear. Mother, why? Now they'll investigate you instead. She shrugs with remarkable calm for a woman who has just placed herself in grave danger. They can investigate all they like. Half the old women in my birth village used that remedy. None were ever accused of witchcraft for it. She meets your eyes meaningfully. It's when young women show too much knowledge that suspicions arise. Age has some advantages. They expect old women to have picked up a few remedies over the years. Her strategy is clever but dangerous. Brother Martin seems unlikely to abandon his pursuit easily, regardless of who claims responsibility for the treatment. That night, as the household finally sleeps after the day's tensions, you carefully examine your options. Stay and face almost certain accusation eventually, as Brother Martin's investigation continues. Or flee, alone or with your family, into the winter landscape with 2 young children and limited resources. Neither choice promises safety. Both carry terrible risks. But as you look at your sleeping children, at Thomas's still recovering form, you know you cannot risk them all for your own freedom to practice healing. Some sacrifices are too great, even for knowledge worth preserving. Your decision crystallizes with painful clarity. You must leave alone, drawing the investigation away from your family. Taking just your mother's box and essential knowledge, you'll seek refuge elsewhere while ensuring your family appears innocent of any collaboration. It's the only way to protect what matters most. The question is when and how to implement this desperate plan, and whether anyone else must pay the price for your determination to preserve your mother's legacy of healing. You wait 3 days, 3 agonizing days of watching your children, memorizing their faces, breathing in their scents. 3 days of exchanging meaningful glances with Thomas, who senses something in your manner but can't quite identify what's changed. 3 days of discreetly gathering what little you can take, your mother's box, a small pouch of dried herbs, the tiny carving your mother-in-law says belonged to your birth mother. The opportunity comes on market day. The bakery is busy, everyone distracted. You've nursed John one final time, knowing your absence will force weaning sooner than intended. The guilt is crushing, but you remind yourself that many infants survive on goat's milk or wet nurses. John is stronger now, 4 months old and finally showing proper weight. I need to gather some household herbs, you tell your mother-in-law casually. Just common things. Mint for cooking, chamomile for sleep. I won't go far. She gives you a long look, her worn face unreadable. Take your heavy cloak, she says finally. The wind has teeth today. You wonder if she suspects, if some maternal instinct warns her that your ordinary words mask extraordinary intent. But she says nothing more, turning back to the bread dough with practiced movements. You kiss Marta goodbye, telling her to be good for grandmother while you're at the market. She nods solemnly, already helping to knead a small lump of dough, her serious expression so like Thomas's that your heart constricts painfully. John sleeps in his basket near the oven's warmth. You bend to press your lips to his forehead one last time, inhaling his sweet milk and bread scent. He stirs slightly, but doesn't wake, tiny hands flexing in dreams. I'll be back before dark, you say aloud, the first direct lie you've ever told your family. The weight of it sits heavy in your chest as you pull your cloak tight and step outside. The winter day is cold but clear, unusual for the season. You take it as a good sign. At least you won't be fighting snow or rain. Your pack is light, containing only essentials. You wear every piece of warm clothing you own, layers creating bulk that hides your true thinness after childbirth and nursing. You move through the village openly at first, nodding to neighbours, stopping briefly at stalls as if truly marketing. Only when you reach the edge of the settlement do you deviate from expected paths, cutting through the blacksmith's empty paddock toward the northern forest. Willem knows this part of your plan. 3 days ago, you confided in him, knowing you needed at least one ally outside your family. Too dangerous to stay, too dangerous to bring them, he agreed grimly after hearing your reasoning. Where will you go? Better you don't know, you told him, in case they question you. He nodded, understanding. I'll leave supplies at the Hollow Oak. Food, flint, a knife. Not much, but something to start with. Now you head for this predetermined spot, the ancient oak with its partially hollow trunk that you've used before as a landmark when gathering herbs. The tree stands sentinel at the forest edge, bare branches stark against the winter sky. The small bundle is there as promised, wrapped in oiled cloth to keep dampness out, tucked into the hollow where only someone who knew to look would find it. You add it to your meagre possessions, send a silent thanks to Willem, and plunge deeper into the forest. You have no clear destination, only a direction, north and east, toward the larger towns where anonymity might offer some protection. Your mother's map shows herb locations across a surprisingly wide region, suggesting she travelled extensively in her healing work. You'll follow these markings as both practical guide and symbolic connection to her path. The first day passes in determined walking. You avoid roads, keeping to game trails and natural clearings where possible. By nightfall, you've covered perhaps 6 or 7 miles, not far enough to feel safe, but the best you can manage in winter conditions while still recovering from childbirth. You make camp in a dense thicket, gathering fallen branches to create a small lean-to against a large boulder. The fire you build is tiny, just enough to warm your hands and heat a small amount of water for tea. Willem's provisions, hard bread, dried meat, a small skin of ale, serve as your first meal of exile. Sleep comes fitfully, interrupted by every forest sound and more painfully by your breast's fullness. Your body doesn't understand why your baby no longer nurses. The discomfort is both physical and soul deep, your body literally weeping for your lost children. Dawn brings no relief, only the grim necessity of continuing. You bind your painfully engorged breasts tightly with cloth strips, knowing the milk will eventually dry up, but dreading the process. After a small breakfast from your provisions, you dismantle all evidence of your camp and resume walking. The second day is harder than the first. Your muscles protest the unaccustomed exertion. The emotional shock of what you've done hits fully, bringing waves of doubt, guilt, and grief that sometimes stop you mid-stride, gasping with their intensity. Have you made a terrible mistake? Would it have been better to stay, to face whatever accusations came, rather than abandon your family? Will Thomas forgive you once he realizes you've gone? Will your children remember you, or will you become just a vague shadow in their memories? These questions torture you as you push onward, each step carrying you further from everything you love toward an uncertain future. By the second night, exhaustion at least grants you deeper sleep, though your dreams are haunted by Marta's voice calling for you. On the third day, you reach a broader trail that shows signs of recent travel, cart tracks, horse droppings, footprints in the muddy patches. Following it cautiously brings you by afternoon to a small hamlet, just a cluster of houses around a mill too small to have its own church or market. You approach carefully, aware that strangers are always viewed with suspicion, especially women traveling alone. Your story is prepared. You're a widow journeying to join relatives after your husband's death, a simple tale that explains your solitary state without inviting too many questions. The mill's wife, a robust woman with flour perpetually dusting her clothes, regards you with initial wariness that softens slightly at your appropriately humble demeanor. "We've little to offer travellers," she tells you when you inquire about work or lodging, "but I suppose you could sleep in the storage shed if you help with the washing tomorrow. Been getting behind with my hands rough from the winter air." You accept gratefully, recognizing the offer for the unexpected kindness it is. The shed is drafty but dry, lined with sacks of grain that provide some insulation against the cold. It feels luxurious after 2 nights in the forest. The next morning, you prove your worth by efficiently tackling the Mill family's substantial laundry pile. Your hands crack and bleed in the harsh lye soap and cold water, but you welcome even this discomfort as distraction from your thoughts. When you apply a simple salve from your herb pouch to your damaged hands, the miller's wife notices. "That smells soothing," she remarks. "What is it?" You freeze momentarily, remembering too late the danger of revealing any healing knowledge. "Just comfrey and beeswax," you answer carefully. "My mother taught me for chapped skin." She nods. "Works well. My hands are the same. Might you spare a bit?" The request is reasonable, the situation seemingly innocent, but alarm bells ring in your mind. This is how it begins. A simple remedy shared, words spreading of your knowledge, questions following about what else you might know. "I've only a small amount," you hedge. "Barely enough for my journey." Her expression cools noticeably. "As you wish. You've failed some unspoken test of neighbourly generosity, but better that than risk revealing too much of your abilities." You finish the laundry in awkward silence, accept the promised meal and night's shelter, but resolve to move on at first light. Dawn brings a surprise, a light dusting of snow and, more alarmingly, the sound of multiple horses approaching the hamlet. Peering through a crack in the shed wall, you see 6 mounted men, one bearing a standard you recognize with dread, the Archbishop's insignia. They stop at the mill house. Though you can't hear the conversation, the gestures are clear enough. Questions being asked, descriptions given. Your heart pounds painfully as you realize what's happening. They're searching for you, and much sooner than you expected. You slip out the shed's back wall, where a loose board creates a narrow gap, abandoning the relative comfort of human shelter for the forest's dangerous embrace. There's no time to thank the miller's wife or offer explanation for your abrupt departure. You can only hope she won't suffer for having sheltered you, however briefly. Moving quickly despite the fresh snow, you push northeast, away from the search party's direction. The forest grows denser here, the terrain more rugged. It slows your progress, but also makes you harder to track, especially as new snow begins to fall more heavily, covering your footprints. For 3 more days, you travel like this, pushing your body to its limits, sleeping in whatever shelter you can find or create, rationing your dwindling supplies with increasing strictness. The inhabited places you most hope to reach now represent danger rather than safety. If the Archbishop's men search for you even in tiny hamlets, larger towns will certainly be watched. On the 6th day since leaving your family, weakened by poor nutrition and inadequate rest, you stumble on a hidden route and fall heavily, twisting your ankle. The pain is immediate and intense, your foot swelling rapidly inside your worn boot. "No," you whisper fiercely, "not now." But your body has reached its limit. The ankle will bear no weight without excruciating pain. Night approaches, the temperature dropping, and you're forced to make camp where you've fallen, with inadequate shelter and no prospect of continuing tomorrow. For the first time since your flight began, you allow yourself to truly weep, not just in silent tears that can be wiped away while walking, but in gut-wrenching sobs that echo in the empty forest. You cry for your children, for Thomas, for the warm bakery and familiar life you've abandoned. You cry from pain, from fear, from bone-deep exhaustion. When the storm of weeping finally passes, leaving you hollow-eyed and hoarse, practical necessity reasserts itself. You need better shelter, fire, a way to treat your injury. Using a fallen branch as a makeshift crutch, you manage to gather materials for a more substantial lean-to than your previous hasty constructions. From your precious herb supply, you create a poultice for the ankle, comfrey for healing, willow bark for pain, yarrow to reduce swelling. It helps, but not enough. You know you can't walk far on this injury, not for several days at least. As night deepens around your small fire, you face the stark reality of your situation. Your food will last perhaps 2 more days with strict rationing. Your injured ankle makes hunting or foraging nearly impossible. The winter forest offers little sustenance even for the able-bodied, and somewhere behind you, men with horses continue searching, their pursuit likely to cross your path eventually given your slowed pace. Think, you mutter to yourself. What would Agnes do? What would my mother have done? The answer comes not in words, but in a memory. A story Agnes once told about hiding from soldiers during a border dispute many years ago. She'd covered herself with forest debris and lain still as death while men searched within feet of her position. Could such a strategy work against trained Inquisitor's men? Perhaps not for long, but it might buy time for your ankle to heal enough for travel. You begin planning how to create a hidden shelter somewhere off the usual game trails, concealed from casual observation. Morning brings fresh determination and slightly less pain in your ankle. Using your crutch, you explore the area immediately surrounding your camp, looking for natural features that might serve your purpose. A fallen tree, its massive root ball creating a wall of earth and tangled wood, offers possibility. Behind it, partially sheltered by the exposed roots, you could create a space invisible from most angles. With careful addition of branches and forest litter, it might pass unnoticed by searchers, not specifically examining every inch of ground. The work takes all day, exhausting your limited strength. You drag yourself on hands and knees when necessary, gathering materials, constructing your hidden den with the focused intensity of an animal preparing for winter. By nightfall, you have a shelter that, while uncomfortable, offers concealment and some protection from weather. You sleep fitfully, waking at every sound, imagining hoofbeats in the wind's rustle, voices in the calls of night birds. Dawn brings both relief and new anxiety. You've survived another night, but how many more can you endure in these conditions? The answer comes sooner than expected. Mid-morning, the unmistakable sound of men moving through the forest reaches your hiding place. Not just one or two hunters, but a group, speaking occasionally in low voices, spreading out in a search pattern. You freeze in your concealed shelter, barely daring to breathe. They're methodical, these searchers, checking fallen logs, dense thickets, any place a fugitive might hide. They're also closer than comfort allows, perhaps 50 yards away and approaching. With terrible clarity, you understand you cannot outrun or outfight these men. Your only hope lies in complete stillness, in becoming as one with the forest floor. You pull dead leaves over your cloak, press yourself into the earth behind the root ball, and wait. Their voices grow clearer. You make out words now, instructions about the search area, comments about the difficulty of the terrain, then a voice that turns your blood cold. Brother Martin's distinctive tone issuing commands. Check every hollow, every fallen tree. She can't have gone far with a child's description. A child's description. The phrase makes no sense until horrible understanding dawns. They've questioned Marta. Your daughter, barely 3, has been interrogated by these men about where her mother might go. The thought sends rage coursing through you, temporarily overwhelming even your fear. The search party moves inexorably closer. A man passes within 10 feet of your hiding place, close enough that you can see the mud on his boots through a small gap in your cover. He pauses, looking around, then continues past without noticing the subtle signs of your shelter. For nearly an hour, this nerve-shredding proximity continues as the men quartering the area. Every muscle in your body screams from the tension of holding perfectly still. Your injured ankle throbs in time with your racing heart. Twice more, searchers come frighteningly close to your position without discovering you. Finally, blessedly, a horn sounds in the distance. The men nearest you turn back, called to regroup elsewhere. Their voices fade gradually, moving away towards some new search area decided by their leaders. You remain motionless long after the last sound of them disappears, paranoia suggesting it could be a trick to flush you out. Only when the forest's natural sounds fully return, birds calling, small animals rustling in the underbrush, do you dare to shift position slightly, easing cramped muscles. This close encounter brings home the full reality of your situation. The search is larger and more organized than you anticipated. They're using systematic methods covering large areas thoroughly, and most disturbingly, they've involved your family, perhaps coercing information from Marta or Thomas. What has happened in the village since your departure? Has your family been accused of helping you escape? Are they under guard, or worse, under arrest? The questions torment you, unanswerable in your isolation. That night, huddled in your hidden den with dwindling supplies and a healing but still painful ankle, you face the harshest question yet. Was leaving truly the right choice? Or have you made everything worse by running, confirming suspicions, and potentially endangering those you meant to protect? Too late for such doubts now. You're committed to this path, for better or worse. All you can do is survive. Keep moving when able, and hope somehow to draw the danger away from your family. The next 3 days pass in a blur of discomfort and anxiety. Your ankle improves enough to bear some weight, though each step remains painful. You ration your remaining food to mere mouthfuls, stretching it as far as possible while gathering what meagre forage the winter forest provides. Rose hips, pine needles for tea, a few withered berries missed by birds. On the 4th day after the search party's near discovery, you hear something unexpected, women's voices conversing casually as they move through the forest. Not searchers or soldiers, but ordinary women gathering winter greens or checking trap lines. Caution wars with desperate need for human contact, for information, for possible help. After agonizing indecision, you emerge partially from hiding, making enough noise to be noticed without startling the women into flight. 3 women from a nearby settlement, it turns out. A half-day's walk that would have taken you twice as long on your injured ankle. They regard you with initial suspicion that shifts to concern as they take in your obvious condition. Thin, dirty, limping, clearly living rough in the winter forest. "Who are you then?" asks the oldest, a grey-haired woman with shrewd eyes. "What brings a woman alone to these woods?" Your prepared story of widowhood and travelling to relatives seems painfully inadequate now, but you offer it anyway, adding details of a fall and injury to explain your current state. The women exchange glances, communicating silently in the way of those who've known each other long. The oldest speaks again. "There's men searching these parts, looking for a runaway woman. Healer, they say, or witch, depending who's telling the tale." Your heart stutters. "I've seen no one," you lie, keeping your expression neutral with effort. The woman studies you, her gaze uncomfortably perceptive. "Our settlement's small, no church yet, though they say we'll get a priest someday. For now, we manage our own affairs, including our own healings and birthings." The implication hangs in the air between you. This woman, perhaps all 3, are healers themselves in some capacity. They recognize something in you that goes beyond your obvious distress. "My daughter's time is near," says the youngest woman suddenly. "First baby, breech, we think." Again, unspoken meaning fills the space between words. They're offering a test, a chance to prove yourself useful rather than merely needy. "I've helped turn breech babies before," you say carefully. "With the right techniques, many can be delivered safely." Relief crosses the young woman's face. The older nods decisively. "You'll come with us then. Rest, clean up, help if you can. After that," she shrugs, "we'll see." It's not safety, not truly. The Archbishop's men could easily visit their settlement in their widening search, but it's shelter, human contact, a temporary respite from complete isolation, and perhaps, if you prove your worth, something more lasting. As you limp alongside these women through the winter forest, you understand that you've reached another crossroads. Stay with these people who seem to recognize and potentially value your skills, or continue your solitary flight toward an ever-receding horizon of safety. For now, at least, the choice seems clear. You'll help this young woman bring her child safely into the world, if you can. You'll accept the offered shelter and rest. You'll learn what news these women have of the search, of events in the wider world beyond your limited forest existence. And then, only then, will you decide what comes next in this desperate gamble to preserve both your life and the healing knowledge you carry. The settlement consists of just 12 households clustered around a small stream. No church spire dominates the skyline, no manor house establishes hierarchy, just simple dwellings, a communal baking oven, a few livestock pens, the kind of place that barely exists on maps, the kind that authorities often forget between tax collections. The women lead you to a sturdy cottage near the settlement's edge. Inside, a young woman, perhaps 17, sits by the fire, her hugely pregnant belly making even simple movements awkward. She looks up as you enter, hope and fear mingling in her expression. "This is Eliza," the older woman explains. "My daughter, due any day now, but the baby's not turned proper." You nod understanding, setting aside your own exhaustion and pain. "May I?" you ask Eliza, gesturing toward her belly. She nods permission. With gentle, practiced hands, you palpate her abdomen, feeling the baby's position. The older women watch intently as you work, neither interfering nor showing doubt. Yes, breech presentation, you confirm, but not yet engaged in the birth canal. There's still time to turn. Relief floods Eliza's face. "Can you help? The last woman who tried said it was too difficult, that I should prepare for the worst." The grim subtext is clear. Prepare for death, hers or the baby's or both. Breech births kill many mothers and more infants, especially with inexperienced attendants. "I can try," you say, not promising miracles but offering genuine hope. "I've turned breech babies before. Not all can be moved, but many can with the right techniques." The older woman, Eliza's mother, you learn her name is Maud, nods approvingly. "Rest first. Eat something. The baby won't come tonight. Tomorrow is soon enough to try." You don't argue. Your body screams for rest. Your ankle throbs mercilessly, and hunger gnaws at your belly. Maud offers stew from the pot hanging over the fire. Simple fare of root vegetables with a few precious bits of salt pork, but to your deprived senses it's a feast beyond imagining. After eating, you're shown to a small pallet in the corner. Clean straw beneath worn blankets feels luxurious after nights on frozen ground. Sleep claims you almost instantly, dragging you into blessed unconsciousness before you can even properly thank your hosts. You wake disoriented, sunlight streaming through an unfamiliar window. For one heart-stopping moment, you think you're back in the bakery, that everything, the flight, the forest, the searchers, was a terrible dream. Then reality reasserts itself as pain shoots through your ankle when you move. Maud works at the table, grinding something with mortar and pestle. She looks up at your movement. "Slept the day and night through," she comments. "Must have needed it badly." You struggle to sitting position, embarrassed by such weakness. "I'm sorry, I meant to help with Eliza yesterday." "The baby waited," Maud says practically. "Eliza's having her first pains now. Slow yet, early stages. Good time for turning, if it's to be done." The next hours blur into a focused routine you know well, preparing Eliza with gentle exercises, showing her breathing techniques, applying warm oil to relax her abdomen. When the moment seems right, you demonstrate the external version technique Agnes taught you, applying careful pressure to encourage the baby to somersault into proper position. It's delicate patience-testing work. Too much pressure risks harming mother or child. Too little accomplishes nothing. Eliza grimaces but bears the discomfort bravely, trusting this stranger with her life and her baby's. "There," you murmur, feeling the subtle shift beneath your hands. "The head's coming down now. Feel here." You guide Maud's hand to the proper spot, letting her confirm the baby's new position. Her eyebrows rise with impressed surprise. Smooth as silk, never seen it done so easily. Not always that cooperative, you admit. This baby wanted to turn. The labour progresses normally after that, long and painful as first births typically are, but without the mortal danger a breech delivery would have presented. Near dawn the following day, Eliza delivers a healthy girl, small but perfectly formed, with a lusty cry that brings tears to her exhausted mother's eyes. "You've saved them both," Maud says quietly as you clean and swaddle the infant. "Not many could have done what you did." The simple acknowledgement warms something deep inside you. Professional pride, yes, but also connection to a lineage of women's knowledge that transcends your personal circumstances. From your mother to you, from Agnes to you, from you to whoever might learn from your example, the chain remains unbroken. As Eliza recovers and bonds with her daughter, you're given space in their cottage to heal your own injuries. Your ankle improves steadily with proper rest and treatment. The settlement cautiously accepts your presence after word spreads of the successful birth. Days stretch into weeks. Winter's grip gradually loosens as February gives way to March. You establish a routine of sorts, helping where your skills are needed, contributing to household tasks within your abilities, slowly rebuilding your strength. You learn the settlement's story from Maud and others. Most residents fled here during the peasant rebellions a generation ago, seeking escape from harsh lords and punitive taxes. They've maintained deliberate isolation since, managing their own affairs without official recognition or oversight from either church or nobility. "We had a travelling monk once," Maud tells you one evening as you help prepare dinner, "came through preaching and demanding food and shelter as his due, claimed we needed proper Christian guidance." She snorts derisively. "We fed him, listened politely, then suggested he might find larger congregations elsewhere. Haven't seen his like since." This independence makes the settlement both refuge and risk for someone in your position. No local authority exists to report or arrest you, but the settlement's very autonomy marks it as suspicious in official eyes. If the Archbishop's men expand their search this far, the entire community could face consequences for harbouring you, willing or not. This knowledge weighs on you, tempering the tentative sense of security you've begun to feel. You remain vigilant, ready to flee again if necessary, though your depleted stores and still healing ankle make the prospect daunting. Information from the outside world comes sporadically through occasional traders or residents' rare visits to larger villages for supplies they can't produce themselves. One such trader brings news that freezes your blood mid-March. "Archbishop's men still searching for that witch woman," he comments casually over dinner, having bartered metalwork for food and shelter. "Expanded to 3 counties now, offering rewards for information." You keep your expression neutral with effort, focusing on your bowl of stew. No one in the settlement has connected you to these searches yet, at least not openly. "What witch woman?" someone asks. The trader shrugs. "Some healer from a village west of here. Performed ungodly surgeries, they say. Fled when discovered, left husband and small children behind." He takes a long drink before adding, "Sad business with the little girl." Your heart stops. "The little girl?" you ask, before you can stop yourself. He glances at you without particular interest. Died of fever, from what I heard. Not long after the mother disappeared." The bowl slips from your suddenly numb fingers, shattering on the packed earth floor. Marta, your beautiful, serious daughter with her father's expressions and your mother's eyes, dead of fever while you fled to save yourself. "Sorry," you mutter, dropping to your knees to gather the broken pieces, grateful for the excuse to hide your face as tears threaten. That night, alone on your pallet, you finally allow grief its full expression, muffling sobs in a wadded blanket. Your daughter is dead. Your flight, meant to protect your family, instead left Marta vulnerable when illness struck. Would your remedies have saved her? Could you have prevented her death if you'd stayed, faced whatever accusations came, rather than running? These unanswerable questions torment you through sleepless hours. By dawn, grief has crystallized into something harder, colder, resolve. You've lost too much to remain hidden forever, living half a life while your surviving family believes you abandoned them completely. The decision forms with uncomfortable clarity. You'll find a way to send word to Thomas, to learn more about what happened to Marta, to discover whether John still lives and thrives. Not immediately. The Archbishop's men still actively search, but soon, when opportunity presents itself. This resolution brings no peace, but it provides direction, purpose beyond mere survival. You continue helping the settlement's residents with their ailments and injuries, now with the conscious intention of earning enough goodwill and trust to eventually request their aid in contacting your family. Spring arrives properly by April, bringing mud and rain, but also fresh growth and easier travel. Your ankle has healed completely. Your body has recovered from childbirth and the hardships of winter flight. Outwardly, you appear merely a capable widow with useful healing skills. Your grief and purpose hidden beneath practical daily activities. Another trader arrives as the first wildflowers bloom, bringing goods from the larger market town a 3-day journey away. Unlike the previous visitor, this one takes particular notice of you, his gaze following your movements with unsettling intensity. "Haven't I seen you before?" he asks directly when you bring him a cup of ale. "In Fairbrook Market, perhaps?" "You've never been to Fairbrook in your life." "I think not," you reply, keeping your tone neutral. "I've not travelled much." He continues studying you, unconvinced. Got a good memory for faces, I do. Yours seems familiar." Unease prickles along your spine. Whether he truly recognizes you or simply finds you attractive in some unwelcome way, his attention represents danger. You make yourself scarce for the remainder of his visit, volunteering for tasks that keep you away from the common areas. The trader departs the next morning, but your sense of security has shattered. Someone has noticed you, questioned your identity. How long before others do the same? How long before rumor reaches the wrong ears? Your opportunity to contact Thomas comes unexpectedly a week later. A young man from the settlement prepares to journey to the larger village where your family lives, carrying handcrafted goods to trade at the spring market. "I could carry a message," he offers when he learns of your connection there. "No trouble to ask after a baker's family while I'm about my business." The risk is considerable. If the young man is questioned, if your message is discovered, it could endanger both him and Thomas. Yet the need to know about your surviving child, to somehow explain to Thomas why you left, overrides caution. You write no letter. Writing itself would be suspicious for a common woman. Instead, you entrust the young man with a verbal message and a small token, the tiny carved doll that belonged to your mother. Tell the baker that his wife's mother sends her love. You instruct. The coded message, hopefully meaningless to any but Thomas. Give him this and say it should be passed to their son when he's older. The young man nods, tucking the small carving into his belt pouch. Simple enough? Any message in return? Just word of the family's health, you say, particularly the baby boy. After he departs, you vacillate between hope and dread. Will Thomas understand your oblique message? Will he respond? Or has he already written you off as dead or deserter? Most frightening of all, will your attempt at contact somehow bring danger to his door again? 5 anxious days pass before the young man returns. His expression as he approaches you is carefully blank, not a good sign. "Well?" you ask, heart pounding. He glances around to ensure privacy before speaking low. "Found the bakery easy enough, but there's no baker named Thomas there anymore." Cold dread washes through you. "What do you mean?" New family running it now. When I asked after the previous baker, people got strange, closed up. One finally said the family left months ago after some trouble. He hesitates before adding, religious trouble they meant, witchcraft accusations. Your worst fears confirmed. Despite your flight, suspicion fell on your family anyway. Did they say where the family went, if they're alive? He shakes his head. No one would speak of it directly, but I heard the boy survived, taken by relatives. The baker, he trails off uncomfortably. Tell me, you demand, whatever it is. They said he was questioned harshly. After that, some said he was imprisoned in the Abbey dungeons. Others said he died during questioning. No one seemed certain. The ground seems to shift beneath your feet. Thomas imprisoned or dead, John taken by relatives, whose, your in-laws, some distant connection of Thomas's you never met, Marta dead of fever, your entire family destroyed, scattered, and you weren't there to help them, to face the consequences of your knowledge alongside them. I'm sorry, the young man says awkwardly, clearly unsure how to respond to your stricken expression. I brought back your token. No one would take it. He holds out the small carving. You accept it mechanically, fingers closing around the familiar shape without conscious thought. This tiny piece of wood, this remnant of your mother, is all that remains of the life you built and lost. That night, alone in the darkness, you make another decision. The settlement has been kind, but you cannot stay. Your presence endangers them, and there is nothing left here for you now that hope of reconnecting with your family is gone. More importantly, you need answers. The full truth of what happened after you fled, the fate of your son, the specific charges that destroyed your family. You'll return to your village, or close enough to gather information without being recognized immediately. You'll learn exactly what occurred and who was responsible. After that will depend on what you discover. Maud protests when you announce your intention to leave. It's dangerous for women traveling alone, she argues, and we value your skills here. You've become one of us. I'm grateful, you tell her sincerely, but I need to learn my son's fate, and my presence puts everyone here at risk if the authorities expand their search. She can't argue with this logic, though she clearly wishes to. Instead, she helps you prepare for the journey, packing food, mending clothing, offering a walking staff better suited to long travel than your makeshift crutch. You depart as April yields to May, the world green and growing around you. This journey differs markedly from your winter flight. You travel roads rather than forests, your pace measured and deliberate rather than desperate. You look like any widow travelling to seek family after hardship. Unremarkable to casual observation. It takes nearly 2 weeks to circle back toward your former home, approaching from the opposite direction of your escape. You stop in neighbouring villages rather than entering your own, listening in markets and alehouses for news and gossip. The story emerges piece by piece, each fragment more painful than the last. Your disappearance initially caused confusion rather than alarm. Thomas reported you missing after a day, organising searches of the nearby woods, fearing an accident or animal attack. Brother Martin immediately suspected deliberate flight, intensifying his investigation. When Marta fell ill days later with winter fever, Thomas grew frantic, knowing your remedies might have saved her where the monk's treatments failed. Her death broke something in him. He reportedly railed against Brother Martin and Father Gregory publicly, blaming their persecution for driving away the one person who could have saved his daughter. This outburst led to his arrest on suspicion of collusion with your heretical practices. Witnesses claim he was taken to the abbey for questioning under torture about your whereabouts and activities. Some say he died during this interrogation. Others insist he was imprisoned afterward. No one has seen him since. Your infant son was indeed taken by your in-laws, who subsequently left the region entirely, reportedly travelling south to begin anew where their family's notorious connection remained unknown. Most disturbingly, your case has become something of a cautionary tale in church sermons throughout the region. The woman healer who fled rather than face proper judgment, leaving destruction in her wake. You've been formally charged in absentia with witchcraft, heresy, and infanticide. The latter a bizarre fabrication perhaps meant to explain Marta's death in the most damning light possible. Each new detail lands like a physical blow, building a complete picture you can scarcely bear to contemplate. Your family destroyed, your reputation blackened, your worst fears realized despite your desperate attempt to protect those you loved by removing yourself from their lives. But one small hope remains. Your son lives, or did, when these accounts began circulating. If you could somehow locate your in-laws, perhaps you could at least see him once more, perhaps even reclaim him if circumstances allowed. This thin possibility sustains you as you continue gathering information, working your way gradually closer to your former village. You change your appearance as much as possible, different hairstyle, borrowed clothing in unfamiliar colours, a kerchief that shadows your face. Still, you avoid places where you might be recognised, relying on second-hand accounts rather than direct observation. The final piece falls into place at a market 2 villages from your own. An older woman selling eggs mentions offhandedly that she's related to the chandler in your village. Such terrible business with the witch woman and the baker, she comments to another customer. They say the grandmother took the baby south to Fairbrook, where her cousin has property. Fairbrook, the market town the trader claimed to recognize you from. The connection sends a chill through you, even as hope flares. Your mother-in-law has relatives there. John might be closer than you realized. You adjust your plans immediately. Fairbrook lies 3 days' journey southeast, away from your former home, away from the center of the search for you. If you're careful, you might reach it undetected, might somehow locate your son. The journey passes in a haze of determination and anxiety. You rehearse possible approaches, how to find your in-laws without revealing your identity, how to evaluate whether reclaiming John is even possible without endangering him further. The problems seem insurmountable, yet you push forward, unable to abandon this last connection to your shattered family. Fairbrook proves larger than expected, a proper market town with stone buildings around its central square, a church with actual stained glass, streets that form a grid rather than the organic sprawl of smaller settlements. Finding one family among hundreds without attracting attention presents a daunting challenge. You begin cautiously, posing as a traveller, seeking distant relatives yourself, asking after newcomers from the north in shops and at market stalls. Most ignore your questions or provide useless information, but a chandler's apprentice eventually offers a promising lead. Baker and his wife from up north, he muses. Might be the old couple that took over the small bakery on Mill Street. Man's too frail to do much now, but the woman still makes decent bread. Your heart leaps. It fits. Your father-in-law's declining health, your mother-in-law's baking skills. You thank the boy with a small coin and make your way to Mill Street, maintaining a casual pace despite your urge to run. The bakery is modest, wedged between a cooper's workshop and a seamstress's shop. You pause across the street, gathering courage, planning approach. Before you can decide, the door opens. Your mother-in-law emerges, looking older and greyer than the few months since you've seen her could explain, and in her arms, your breath catches, a sturdy boy with dark curls. John, noticeably bigger, but unmistakably your son, squirming with the energy of healthy infancy. Tears blur your vision. He's alive, thriving even. The urge to rush forward, to snatch him into your arms, to cover his face with kisses nearly overwhelms rational thought. Only iron self-control keeps you rooted in place, observing from shadow. Your mother-in-law speaks to him as she adjusts his small cap, her expression softening in a way you rarely witnessed before. She clearly loves him, is caring for him well. This realization brings both relief and a new kind of pain. He's safe, but no longer yours. As you watch them walk toward the market square, a new understanding crystallizes. Any attempt to reclaim him now would only bring fresh danger to everyone involved. The authorities still search for you. Your son has stability with his grandmother. Disrupting that could cost him everything, just as your previous well-intentioned actions cost Marta and Thomas their lives. Sometimes love means letting go. This brutal truth settles like stone in your chest as you make the hardest decision yet, to leave without making contact, to give your son the gift of ordinary life without the taint of his mother's accusations. You follow at a distance, memorizing John's face, his expressions, the sound of his baby laughter when your mother-in-law bounces him in her arms. These memories will have to sustain you through whatever comes next. What comes next arrives sooner than expected. As you trail your son and mother-in-law through the market, a commotion erupts nearby. Raised voices, the clatter of weapons. Town guards surround a merchant's stall where some dispute has escalated beyond civil resolution. You pay little attention until a guard turns, scanning the crowd, and his gaze locks with yours across the market square. Recognition flashes in his eyes. Impossible. You've never been to Fairbrook before, yet he clearly knows your face. Then understanding dawns. The descriptions, the expanded search, the reward for information. Your face has been described to authorities throughout the region, and this man has made the connection. You turn and walk away quickly, not running yet, but moving with purpose toward the nearest street exit. Behind you, the guard calls for attention, for assistance. More guards respond. The crowd, sensing excitement, grows louder, parts for the authorities. There's no choice now but flight. You abandon caution, breaking into a run as shouts follow you down narrow streets. You know nothing of Fairbrook's layout, making random turns, hoping to lose pursuit in unfamiliar alleys. It almost works. You find yourself in a quiet back street, the sounds of pursuit temporarily faded. A small gate in a garden wall stands ajar. Without hesitation, you slip through, seeking hiding place until darkness might cover further escape. The garden belongs to a substantial home. Fruit trees provide cover as you catch your breath, assessing options. Before you can move again, the back door opens. A woman steps out, well-dressed, middle-aged, clearly the lady of the house. She sees you immediately. You freeze, expecting screams or accusations. Instead, she studies you with surprising calm. "You're the healer they're searching for," she says. "Not a question. You don't bother denying it. I'll go. I meant no trespass." "Wait." She glances back at the house, then approaches. "My daughter has consumption, coughing blood these past months. The physicians bleed her and prescribe useless potions while she wastes away." You understand instantly what she's suggesting. "I have no remedies with me," you say carefully, "and treating her would risk your household as well as myself. I have herbs in my still room, and as for risk," she straightens, dignity evident in her bearing, "I would risk more to save my child, as would you, I think." The truth of her words strikes deep. You would risk everything for your children, did risk everything, though the gamble failed tragically. "Show me to her," you say simply. The next hours pass in focused treatment of the consumptive girl, preparing inhaled steam with pine and eucalyptus, teaching the mother techniques to drain fluid from the lungs, creating poultices to ease breathing. The girl is gravely ill, her recovery far from certain, but you give her better chance than bloodletting and useless potions. As evening approaches, the lady of the house offers concealment for the night, a chance to slip away under darkness. You accept gratefully, though you harbour no illusions about long-term escape. The authorities know you're in Fairbrook now. The net will only tighten. But fate allows no even this brief reprieve. As night falls, torches appear in the street outside, accompanied by pounding on doors, shouts of room-by-room searches. The hunt has intensified, becoming systematic building inspections rather than random pursuit. "There's no time," your hostess says urgently. "They're searching every house on the street." "I won't bring this to your door," you tell her firmly. "Is there another way out?" She shows you to a small postern gate in the garden wall opposite where you entered. This leads to the tanner's yard, but they'll have men watching the streets by now. She's right, you know. The moment has come that you've been fleeing since winter. The inevitable confrontation with authorities determined to make example of a woman who dared know too much, heal too effectively, think too independently. "Thank you," you tell her with genuine gratitude, "for the chance to help your daughter, for believing in women's knowledge rather than fearing it." She presses something into your hand, a small pouch that clinks with the unmistakable sound of coins. "For your journey if you find a way, for your family if you don't." You slip through the gate into gathering darkness, no real plan beyond immediate evasion. The tanner's yard stands empty, tools put away for the night, hides soaking in their malodorous vats. The smell might discourage casual searchers buying precious minutes. Those minutes end with the sound of the yard gate crashing open, torchlight spilling across the packed earth. Men enter, guards in Fairbrook livery, others in the Archbishop's colours, and one black-robed figure you recognise even in dim light, Brother Martin. "There!" someone shouts, spotting your movement behind a vat. You could run still, force them to chase you through the narrow spaces between vats and workbenches. But to what end? The yard has only one other exit, likely already watched. Your long flight, begun in winter forest, will end here in a tanner's yard with the smell of death already heavy in the air. You straighten, stepping into torchlight. "I'm here," you say, voice steady despite your pounding heart. No need for further search. Brother Martin approaches, triumph evident in his thin smile. The witch healer herself, at last. "I'm a healer," you agree calmly. "Not a witch. There's a difference, though men like you work hard to erase it." His smile vanishes. "Blasphemy now, to add to your crimes. Seize her." Rough hands grab your arms, iron manacles close around your wrists, unnecessary restraint for a woman who no longer flees, but symbolic of your new status as dangerous heretic rather than merely human. "My son," you say to Brother Martin as they begin to lead you away. One last attempt, one final concern that overrides even your own fate. Is he well cared for? Something like genuine curiosity crosses Brother Martin's face. The infant? Yes. His grandmother raises him as a proper Christian, free from his mother's corrupting influence. He studies you. Strange that a witch would care. "Not strange at all," you reply. "Only your twisted vision makes maternal love seem unnatural when paired with healing knowledge." This philosophical exchange ends abruptly as you're taken to Fairbrook's small jail, a single cell beneath the town hall, damp and dark and smelling of despair. The manacles remain, though you're unlikely to escape through solid stone walls and iron-barred door. 3 days pass in this grim confinement. You're given minimal food and water, no opportunity to wash or change your soiled clothing. Sleep comes fitfully on mouldy straw, yet physical discomfort pales against mental anguish, grief for Martha, uncertainty about Thomas, separation from John, knowledge that your mother's healing legacy will likely die with you. On the 4th day, they bring in a priest you don't recognize, not Father Gregory, but someone of higher rank, judging by his elaborate vestments. Confess, he states without preamble, admit your dealings with dark forces, accept God's forgiveness before facing earthly justice. You laugh, a harsh sound in the dank cell. I have nothing to confess except the crime of being a woman who learned to heal. Show me where Scripture forbids easing suffering, saving lives, using plants God himself created. His expression hardens. Defiance will only make your end more difficult. My end was determined the moment men like you decided women's knowledge threatened your authority. You reply, beyond fear now, speaking truth regardless of consequences. Whether I grovel or stand proud, the result remains the same. He makes the sign of the cross as if warding off evil, then departs without further attempt at extracting confession. You're left alone again, watching pale light move across your cell as another day passes. On the 5th day, they bring you out. No trial, you learn. Your case was judged in absentia months ago. Your guilt determined, your sentence decided. Today merely executes that judgment, makes public example of the woman who dared know too much. Fairbrook's main square has been prepared for the spectacle. A stake stands ready, surrounded by wood and kindling. Crowds have gathered, some solemn, some festive, all eager to witness the burning of a condemned witch. You're led through their midst, hands still manacled, wearing the same clothes you've worn since capture. People press close, some hurling insults, others making signs against evil, a few looking troubled or uncertain about the proceedings. Among the crowd, you glimpse a familiar face, your hostess from the garden house, standing with a frail girl who must be her daughter. The girl breathes easier, stands stronger than when you treated her days ago. Your final gift to the world, perhaps. One more child with chance to grow to womanhood. Then another face catches your eye, and your heart nearly stops. Your mother-in-law stands near the front, expression unreadable, and in her arms, John, your beautiful boy, too young to understand the horror unfolding before him, too young to remember his mother in years to come. Grief and rage war within you. They've brought your son to witness your execution. Whether by cruel design or simple chance, the result is the same. Your final moments on earth will play out before the child you gave life to, nursed, loved beyond reason. As they bind you to the stake, securing your body with ropes around your waist and chest, you keep your eyes fixed on John, memorizing his face, sending silent love across the square, willing him somehow to grow up questioning the world that murdered his mother for the crime of healing. Brother Martin reads your crimes aloud to the assembled crowd. Witchcraft, heresy, infanticide, this last still incomprehensible, a fabrication that turns your stomach. Unnatural medical practices, dealings with dark forces. The list continues, each charge more outrageous than the last, transforming your simple healing work into monstrous perversion. When he finishes, you're offered final opportunity to confess, to repent, to die with the Church's forgiveness, if not its mercy. You stand straight against the stake, meeting Brother Martin's gaze directly. I confess to healing when healing was needed, you declare, voice carrying across the suddenly quiet square. I confess to learning what women have always known about the body's workings. I confess to using plants and knowledge instead of bleeding and prayers alone. Murmurs run through the crowd. This is not the confession they expected. I die not for witchcraft, for I never practiced it, you continue, strength flowing through you despite your circumstances. I die because men fear women who possess knowledge they can't control. Remember that, all of you watching, remember the truth. Brother Martin signals hastily for the torches. Your words are dangerous, sowing doubt where certainty is required for public execution to serve its purpose. The first torch touches the kindling at your feet. Flames catch quickly in the dry wood, smoke beginning to rise around you. As fire grows beneath you, you keep your eyes on John for as long as possible, your beautiful son, your living legacy. Perhaps someday he'll learn the truth. Perhaps your mother-in-law will tell him of the woman who healed, who saved lives, who loved her family enough to flee in futile attempt to protect them. Smoke thickens, obscuring your view. Heat intensifies around your legs. Pain begins, sharp and terrible. You close your eyes at last, focusing not on the agony building with each heartbeat, but on memories. Marta's serious face when learning to identify herbs. Thomas's quiet support of your healing work. Agnes teaching you to bring new life safely into the world, your mother's box with its precious knowledge. These are worth remembering in your final moments. These connections, this legacy of women helping women across generations, they can burn your body, but that chain of knowledge, once forged, can never be truly broken. Somewhere, another girl is watching her mother or grandmother prepare remedies, learning skills that authorities condemn yet communities rely upon. The work continues despite everything. As consciousness begins to fade beneath waves of unbearable pain, your last coherent thought is simple, bitter truth. In medieval Europe, a woman with healing knowledge walks an impossible path. Learn too little, and you cannot help those who need you. Learn too much, and men with power will destroy you for the crime of knowing more than they believe you should. Your story ends in fire and smoke, but the larger story of women's healing, women's knowledge, women's quiet resistance against imposed limitations continues unbroken across centuries. From healer to healer, mother to daughter, the chain extends forward through time, waiting for the day when knowing too much is no longer crime enough to burn for.